Chapter 3900. Common World. House Chu's Villa. Mingyao, Yushu, Yining, Tangyun, Xiao, Guanxian, Xiaojiu, and Xiaoke. These were the girls that Lin Yi missed the most, and they were all placed in 4 different rooms, all of them unconscious on the bed. Lingshan and Chentian, on the other hand, were patrolling the 4 rooms, paying attention to the girls' condition. On the day of the Heaven Stage Island plan, after the girls fainted, his underlings followed Lin Yi's orders before he left and brought the girls back. Since most of the strong people had already gone to Heaven Stage Island, the remaining people were the strongest, so the process was smooth and no one dared to stop them. After bringing the unconscious girls back to the villa and settling them down, Lingshan and the others discussed the situation and came to the conclusion that the girls' symptoms were similar to Xiaoke's. Their lives weren't in danger, but they wouldn't wake up either. If they wanted to save them, they couldn't do it with their current strength. They could only wait for Lin Yi to come back and see if he could find a way to save them. So, the only thing they could do now was to take care of the girls for Lin Yi. But the villa was only so big, and everyone had their own things to do. It wasn't practical to have so many people take care of the girls. In the end, Lingshan and Chentian took the lead and arranged for 2 people to take turns taking care of the girls. Although they had to take care of so many people, because the girls were all unconscious, there wasn't much to do. 2 people was more than enough, ensuring that there was enough manpower and not delaying everyone's work. Plus, they were all in the same group, and their phones were online 24/7. If there was anything urgent, they would be able to get the message and rush over. So many people were gathered together. Even without Lin Yi as their backbone, with the power of the common world, there were very few forces that could fight against them. Today, it was Lingshan and Chuntian's turn. Lingshan was cleaning the rooms one by one, and Chuntian was patrolling around the villa with General Weiwu and the Purple Lightning Beast. An esteemed great perfection heaven-rank powerhouse was now working as a waiter and security guard. If this spread, it would definitely shock everyone. However, Chuntian, on the other hand, didn't have any complaints. The point was that nothing had ever happened to him in such a long time, and every time the guards saw him, they would look at him with hostility, as if they were looking at a competitor in the same industry. Just thinking about it made his balls ache. Look at your sister. Do you think I'd steal your job? Chentian rolled his eyes as he raised his iron hand. In the beginning, he was treated as a thief by the security guards. Now, at least he had improved to become a good citizen, which was worthy of celebration. Just when he was bored to death, Chuntian suddenly stopped in his footsteps. Not far from the corner, there were 2 people approaching, and judging from the sound of their footsteps, he should be an expert with extraordinary strength. Are you sure those inheritors are unconscious? One of them, an old man with a hideous scar on his face, asked. 100%. Don't worry, copper-robed celestial venerable. If I, Zheningjun, want to know something, it's a piece of cake. The other person was none other than Zheningjun, who hadn't shown himself for a long time. This guy had his eyes on Mingyao and Yushu. He even sent people to kidnap the 2 girls and instigated the Golden Bell sect to cripple Lin Yi's meridians. He was Lin Yi's absolute enemy. After that, he tried his best to use the Golden Bell sect to latch onto the thick thighs of the Iron Cloak sect, thinking that he could do whatever he wanted and capture his nemesis, Lin Yi. He could do whatever he wanted, and even Lin Yi's women like Mingyao would become his playthings. Just thinking about it made him feel good. But before he could show off his power, he received a shocking piece of bad news. The Iron Cloak sect, an ancient sect, was destroyed by Lin Yi. When he received the news, the ancestor of the Iron Cloak sect, bronze-clad celestial lord, happened to be a guest at the Zhen family. As a Heaven Stage Great Perfection expert, he was dumbfounded on the spot. No matter what, Tai Hall was an ancient sect. Even if it wasn't as impressive and domineering as the 5-element sect on the surface, it still had a bunch of heaven-rank paragon experts in the dark. How could it be exterminated within a day? However, the cruel reality told him that although all the disciples of the Iron Cloak sect weren't destroyed, the Heaven Stage Great Perfection experts who were in charge of the sect that day were all dead. Not a single one was left. When Lin Yi brought people to attack the sect, he didn't hide it from others. Hence, bronze-clad celestial lord only needed to inquire a little to know the truth of that day. He also tried to inquire about the situation of the Heaven Stage Island plan. Lin Yi went to the Heaven Stage Island. His women who were his inheritors were all unconscious. This was the key information that bronze-clad Celestial Lord spent a lot of effort to find out. If Lin Yi was still in the secular world, then even if bronze-clad Celestial Lord wanted to take revenge, he would have to think twice. A fierce person who could kill a bunch of Heaven Stage Great Perfection experts of the Iron Cloak sect was not someone that he, a Heaven Stage Great Perfection expert, could afford to provoke. If that was the case, he probably wouldn't even have any thoughts of revenge. He would have long hidden in the deep mountains and forests with his tail between his legs. Otherwise, if Lin Yi knew that there was a fish that escaped the net in the Iron Cloak sect, he would bring people to exterminate them. But now, the leader, Lin Yi, was gone. Those inheritors of the Heaven Stage Great Perfection were all unconscious. In this way, bronze-clad Celestial Lord's opportunity had come. This was simply a heaven-sent opportunity to kidnap all of Lin Yi's most precious women. Since they were already unconscious, he could either kill them one by one or keep them as playthings. When Lin Yi came back, he would take pictures of them and send them to the world. Wouldn't that infuriate him to death? As for Lin Yi's other underlings, bronze-clad Celestial Lord didn't care about them at all. Without Lin Yi as the backbone, these underlings were completely in a state of disunity. Moreover, their strength was definitely not strong. In front of a dignified Heaven Stage Great Perfection expert, what could they do? Chapter 3901. He wasn't the only one who had this thought. Zhen Yingjun was also drooling over Lin Yi's women, especially Ming Yao and Yu Shu. The two hit it off, and Zhen Yingjun personally led the way, which led to this scene. However, just as the two walked to the front of the villa, Wu Chuntian was already blocking in front of them and smiled coldly. Someone finally came. I'm sick of being a security guard. You're Lin Yi's lackey? The copper-clothed Sky Master frowned and exploded with the aura of a heaven-class perfection. He said with disdain, Get out of my sight, or I'll make you wish you were dead. Wow, what a big tone. Wu Chuntian couldn't help but laugh and released his aura as well. He sized up the copper-clothed Sky Master and said, I've never tasted death before. Why don't you teach me, ugly old man? Heaven-class perfection? The copper-clothed Sky Master's eyelids twitched as he looked at Zhen Yingjun in blame. Zhen Yingjun was the one who told him that Lin Yi's lackey wasn't strong. In the end, he met a heaven-class perfection right away. Before coming here, the copper-clothed Sky Master repeatedly asked Zhen Yingjun if the inheritors were really unconscious because he was afraid of meeting a strong enemy. He knew that every inheritor of the Heaven-class Island plan was a Heaven-class Perfection Master. Now that he came here, he found out that a random lackey from Lin Yi's side was a Heaven-class Perfection Master. How could he accept this? Are you surprised, ugly old man? Wu Chuntian laughed mockingly. After being called an ugly old man several times in a row, the copper-robed Holy Lord finally couldn't hide his anger. Because of the hideous blood scar on his face, he hated it the most when people called him ugly. Those who dared to call him that in the past were now dead. Surprised? A little, but you're just a Heaven-class Perfection Master. You don't think you're a match for me one-on-one, do you? Don't be too arrogant, kid. The copper-clothed Sky Master sneered. Even if they were both Heaven-class Perfection Masters, a kid like Wu Chuntian wouldn't be a match for him. There was no doubt about that. With that, Copper was about to attack Chuntian. He had absolute confidence in a one-on-one fight. At that moment, another Sky-class full mastery appeared in front of him. Lingshan walked out of the villa. If one-on-one doesn't work, how about two-on-one? In an instant, the copper-clothed Heavenly Venerate's expression became incomparably unsightly. Two heaven-rank Great Perfection experts came out casually. What the hell was going on? Since when did Full Circle Heaven rank become so worthless? The point was that Lingshan was a beauty, and she walked out of the villa. Copper subconsciously thought of her as an inheritor, and his eyes turned murderous as he looked at Zhen Yingjun. Didn't you say that the inheritors were all unconscious? Were Lin Yi's underlings all a bunch of useless loose sand? What kind of bullsh** tea was this? Sensing the murderous look in the copper-clothed Sky Master's eyes, Zhen Yingjun, who was already scared out of his wits, almost pissed his pants. He quickly stuttered, I don't know. That's what the intel said. What's wrong, ugly old man? Do you want to fight or not? Wu Chuntian said impatiently. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of hurting the unconscious girls in the villa, he would have already made his move. At the same time, Lingshan cooperated and revealed her heaven-class full mastery to the limit. She might not be confident in a one-on-one fight, but two-on-one should be no problem. The copper-clothed Sky Master's aura weakened instantly. He came here today for revenge, not to lose his life here. Tai Hall still needed him to make a comeback. Just you wait. I'll leave my head on your neck for now. I'll take it in the future. The copper-clothed Sky Master finished his sentence and immediately turned to leave. Copper-clothed Sky Master, wait for me. Jin Ingjun scrambled to catch up. He was afraid that Wu Chuntian and Lingshan would stop him. Looking at the two fleeing figures, Wu Chuntian curled his lips in disdain. Copper-clothed Sky Master? Where did these clowns come from? They seemed to be related to the iron-clothed sect, but weren't they annihilated by the boss already? Maybe they're fish that escaped the net. Lingshan guessed. The iron-clothed sect was an ancient sect after all, and they had a lot of assets. It was normal to have a few fish that escaped the net. Then what do we do now? Should we chase after them? Wu Chintian looked at Lingshan. She was Lin Yi's woman, one of his sisters-in-law. Before Lin Yi returned, she had the most say. Lingshan thought about it. Forget it. One of us won't be his match. But if both of us go, someone might take advantage of this place. All right, since sis-in-law Lingshan said so, then we'll let them have it easy this time. Chintian nodded. But from the looks of it, this ugly old man will come back. We need to inform the others. After leaving the villa, copper-clothed Sky Master and Zhang Ingjun carefully looked behind them, relieved that Wu Chuntian and Lingshan didn't chase after them. Copper-clothed Sky Master, what do we do now? Zhang Ingjun learned his lesson after being snubbed for no reason. Sky-class full perfection wasn't something he could interfere with anymore. What do we do? Go back and gather people, of course. Copper-clothed Sky Master gritted his teeth in anger. As an elder of the iron-clothed sect, he was scared back by two subordinates of Lin Yi. It was a great humiliation. Zheningjuan's spirit was lifted, but he was confused. Where are we going to gather people? Wasn't the iron-clothed sect annihilated by Lin Yi already? Even if the headquarters is destroyed, do you think an ancient sect like the iron-clothed sect is gone just like that? I don't dare to talk about other things, but we can still gather 2 or 3 sky-class full perfection. Copper-clothed Sky Master humphed coldly. Others didn't know the strength of the iron-clothed sect, but copper-clothed Sky Master knew it clearly. Although the Five-Element sect was the #1 ancient sect on the surface, because the iron-clothed sect didn't interact with the outside world and had always been a sect, the outside world didn't know about their strength. If they knew, they would think that there were so many sky-class full perfection masters. Previously, the Five-Element sect thought that the iron-clothed sect was too weak and didn't have a single sky-class full perfection master. Chapter 3902. Therefore, Senior Apprentice Brother Gold-Robed Empyrean, Silver-Robed Empyrean, and Martial Uncle Tai Yi were all in seclusion to comprehend the heavenly Tao. It was just that this matter was only known to his junior apprentice brother Tai Yi. Now that Tai Yi was dead, the other disciples did not know. 2 or 3 heaven full cycle. Together with Copper Cloak Sky Master, it's more than enough to deal with those 2. Zhening Jun said excitedly. No, it's not enough. Copper Cloak Sky Master shook his head and said with a ferocious expression, this time, we must make sure that nothing goes wrong, so I plan to call an ally. Who? The Overseas Cultivators Association, He Luonan, and they recently joined forces with the center. Zhening Jun was instantly filled with respect. Ever since he relied on the Iron Cloak sect, he knew a lot about these top figures. Powerful existences like He Luonan and the center were naturally familiar to him. The copper-clothed Heavenly Sovereign and the rest of the experts of the Iron Cloak sect added up to 3 or 4 heaven stage great perfection experts. If He Luan and the group of experts in the center were included, The number of heaven stage great perfection experts alone would be more than the fingers on one hand. Now that Lin Yi wasn't here, he could only rely on his scattered subordinates. So what if he managed to get 2 sky class full circle? Could they fight 2 against 5? Or even more? That was impossible. Today, he rashly came here and got snubbed. This time, he should be able to get back at them. Lin Yi's women were all rare beauties, and they were all heaven full cycle masters. If he could get his hands on them, TSK, Jin Ingjuan's heart itched just thinking about it. A few days later, the heroes of Donghai City gathered and Copper Cloak Sky Master made a comeback. This time, he called the few remaining heaven full cycle masters of Iron Cloak clan over. Master Uncle Iron Cloak Grandmaster, Senior Brothers Gold Cloak Sky Master, Senior Brothers Silver Cloak Sky Master, and Copper Cloak Sky Master himself. A total of 4 heaven full cycle masters rushed to the door of the villa. Ancestor Iron Cloak, several Empyrean Senior Apprentice Brothers, we've mustered such a large force this time. Needless to say, it'll definitely be a piece of cake. At that time, can you reward us with Lin Yi's women? Jining Jun, who was leading the way, asked shamelessly. The experts of the Iron Cloak sect looked at each other. Finally, it was the Iron Cloak Grandmaster with the most experience who expressed his opinion. Fine, we cultivators don't care about women. This time, our focus is on revenge. As for women, if you want them, we'll give them to you. You can humiliate them however you like. But let me say this first. From now on, your Jin clan will have to contribute more to the reconstruction of Iron Cloth sect. Of course. If Grandmaster has any instructions, I will do my best. Jin Ingjun hurriedly answered. The reconstruction of a huge sect like Iron Cloth sect involved many aspects. Many things required the support of secular forces. If he could take this opportunity to intervene in it, the benefits and profits would be self-evident. Of course, even if it was free of charge. At that time, the Iron Cloak sect would send experts to guard the Jin clan, and the Jin clan's gray business of smuggling and drug trafficking would be very worthwhile. Soon, they would be able to get rid of their peers. Iron Cloak Grandmaster nodded. In the past, a small character like Jining Jun wouldn't even enter his eyes. But now that the Iron Cloak sect was destroyed, this was a critical moment. He couldn't let go of any power that could be used. Then, Tai Grandmaster gave Copper Robe Heavenly Lord a look, indicating for him to smash the door. Copper understood immediately, but before he could do anything, General Wei Wu and the Purple Thunderbolt Beast rushed out from inside. Then, Lingshan and Wu Qintian appeared in front of everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wu Qintian counted the number of people and mocked. Only 4 sky class full perfection, and you dare to come here. Ugly old man. Looks like you're really a scumbag. I spared you last time, but you didn't suffer, did you? Then I'll have to help you this time. The copper-robed Heavenly Venerate could not help but get angry when he saw how arrogant he was. Kid, this Heavenly Venerate advises you not to be too arrogant. I'll leave your corpse intact later. Otherwise, humph. That's right. You're just 2 sky class full perfection. Lin Yi isn't here anyways, so don't force yourself at a time like this. Jun Ingjun added. 2? Lingshan raised an eyebrow and laughed. Which eye of yours can tell that there's only 2 of us? Open your eyes wide and look carefully before you say that. Not 2? Jun Ingjun froze and laughed out loud after he reacted. Don't tell me you're counting these 2 beasts as well? What's this? You're just a dog? Wahahaha. He thought that Lingshan was referring to General Wei Wu and the Purple Thunderbolt Beast. These 2 animals looked decent, but they were only Earth-class late-phase peak. To Tie Master and other Sky-class full mastery, they were just cannon fodder. There was no need to worry about them at all. Not only Jining Jun, but the Tai Master, gold-clothed, silver-clothed, and copper-clothed masters were all laughing coldly. They wanted to use 2 beasts against them? This man and woman in front of them must have holes in their brains. Looking at the arrogant faces of the Tai Master and the others, Lingshan and Wu Qintian looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh mockingly. Haha, you guys don't really think that there's only the 2 of us here, do you? Wu Qintian said playfully. Isn't it? Come on, don't try to impress yourself here. Let me tell you, it's useless. With the Tai Master and the other 4 sky-class full perfection behind him, Zhang Jun was completely fearless. No matter how strong Ling Shan and Wu Qintian were, they were just 2 people who were about to die in his eyes. Oh no, Qintian was a man who was about to die, and this Ling Shan, on the other hand, was a rare beauty. He could let the masters of the Iron Cloak sect cripple her first and keep her for his own pleasure. The Tai Master and the others were sure that the 2 were pretending. As far as they were concerned, it was already a miracle that Linny had 2 sky-class full perfection as his subordinates. It was impossible for him to have more than that. Plus, all of Lin Yi's women were unconscious here. If he had a few masters, wouldn't he have to stay here to protect them? Chapter 3903. As a result, among Lin Yi's underlings, either these 2 were the strongest, or the monkeys would scatter when the tree falls. No matter what the situation was, victory was in their grasp, and the 2 of them wouldn't be able to do anything. At this thought, the copper-robed heavenly venerate felt a little regretful. He'd suffered a huge loss last time, and this time, he'd contacted He Luonan from the Association and the Alliance's core, but now that he thought about it, it was unnecessary. His Iron Cloak sect could easily take care of this. Why would he let He Luonan and the others take advantage of them? After all, this was Lin Yi's lair, and since his woman was here, there had to be a lot of treasures and resources. It was best to finish this before He Luonan got here. The Iron Cloak sect was in dire need of resources, and they couldn't just let outsiders take advantage of them. Uncle Master, senior brothers and senior brothers, let's not waste time talking to them. Let's get started. The copper-robed heavenly master gave them a look. Iron Cloak sect and the others understood immediately and got into position, ready to make a move. You Iron Cloak sect are an ancient sect, aren't you? You're trying to bully us with numbers, aren't you? Qintian couldn't help but laugh. Iron Cloak and the others blushed when they heard that. They were all respected seniors of the Iron Cloak sect, and it wasn't a good thing for them to bully 2 juniors like Ling Shan and Qintian. Copper-clothed Skylord hurriedly said, do we need to follow the rules of the Jianghu to deal with Lin Yi's lackeys? It's your ancestors' good fortune to be able to die by our hands. Is that so? Since you're planning to bully us with numbers, I'd like to see who has more people. Ling Shan smiled and clapped her hands lightly, and 4 figures appeared from behind the door. They were Chen Yutian, Feng Tianlong, Pai Jishan, and Pai Jihai. Copper-robed heavenly masters group opened their mouths so wide that 2 eggs could fit inside. F***CKU. These 4 are all heaven stage great perfection experts. Even when they heard the news of the Iron Cloak sect being annihilated by Lin Yi, they weren't as shocked as they were right now. What the fuck? Had the world gone crazy? Were sky-class masters also common now? Looking at their dumbfounded expressions, Ling Shan and the others couldn't help but smile at each other. Ever since the copper-clothed Sky Master's visit, they'd changed their shifts from 2 to 6, waiting for this day. As for why they were all Sky-class full mastery, that was naturally thanks to Lin Yi. Before they set off for Sky-class Island, he purposely got a large batch of Qi-gathering pills to raise the strength of everyone around him to Sky-class full mastery before he was satisfied. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's cautious personality, there was no way he'd leave these people behind and go to Sky-class Island by himself. At this moment, Tai Yi and the others were stunned, and Zhang Jun, the clown, was so scared that he peed his pants, lying on the ground. It was supposed to be 4 against 2, but now it was 4 against 6. What the hell was going on? Tai Yi and the others couldn't help but wonder if they'd gone blind from old age. 6 Sky-class perfection masters jumped out at once, and all of them were just Lin Yi's underlings. This didn't make sense at all. You guys said it yourself, it's not embarrassing to bully us with numbers. Let's go. Qintian laughed loudly, charging at the strongest Tai Yi without hesitation. Ling Shan and the others looked at each other, and without hesitation, they picked their targets and attacked. Meng Yao and the other unconscious girls had been secretly moved to Han Jingjing's villa, so even if the enemy came looking for them, they could still fight back without fear. In a situation like this, Tai Yi and the others could only brace themselves and fight. If they ran now, they wouldn't be able to rebuild Tai Yi sect in the future. They'd have to build a turtle sect instead. Someone like Zhang Jun, on the other hand, was already lying on the side after just a little bit of the shockwave. Irony and the other three, while all of them were sky-class full mastery and could easily win one-on-one, couldn't take on Ling Shan's group in numbers. 6 against 4 meant that there were 2 people who could provide support and sneak attacks at any time. Other than that, there was also General Weiwu and the Purple Lightning Beast. It was basically 8 against 4. Even if the Iron Cloak Ancestor and the others were a bit more tyrannical than ordinary heaven rank experts, it was still very strenuous for them to fight 2 at once. Being suppressed in all aspects was inevitable. The only suspense was how long they could last. Being suppressed by a bunch of juniors like this, Tai Ancestor and the others even had thoughts of killing themselves right now. They had rushed over excitedly for revenge, but in the end, they were beaten up so badly that they couldn't even fight back at all. The difference in their statuses was way too big, and they couldn't accept it in their hearts at all. At this moment, the only thing that the copper-clothed Celestial Lord was thankful for was that he had the foresight to make an appointment with He Luan of the Overseas Cultivators Association. Otherwise, he would have hit an iron plate today and would never be able to show his face again in this lifetime. However, he only made an appointment with He Luodong. As for when he would come, they didn't discuss it. He could only see what his schedule was. What worried Copper was that if the 4 of them couldn't hold on until He Luodong came, then it would be really bad. Oh, you old men are quite strong-willed. I have a whole new level of respect for you. The 8 against 4 battle lasted for half an hour. Although the 4 masters from Iron East sect suffered quite a bit, they were still holding on. They didn't seem to have any intention of running away. This surprised Wu Chuntian and the others. It looks like they're waiting for reinforcements. Let's finish this quickly and take down the 4 of them first. Feng Tianlong was experienced and knowledgeable, so he called out to them. Okay. Everyone responded, and the atmosphere was very strong. Irony and the others were in a precarious situation, and they could lose their lives at any moment. At this moment, He Luodong's voice pierced through the crowd. End this quickly? I'd like to see who's so arrogant. Along with his voice, He Luodong appeared with a powerful aura. Behind him were 3 masters with equally powerful auras. They were all masters he brought from the center, and they were all sky-class perfection masters. The center used to work with the Shinshin ancestor, and after he left, this resource was transferred to his younger brother, He Luodong. Is everyone satisfied with the special chapter? Before, many readers suggested that the Fishman write about the common world, but since he had already written about Heaven-class Island, it would be hard to change his line of thought. But because everyone was very supportive, the Fishman wrote about the common world in the form of a special chapter, as well as some of the holes that weren't filled in. I hope everyone will like it. The Fishman has already set up the storyline for the Heaven-class Island newcomer trial, and it will only get more and more exciting. Lin Yi's training is about to begin, and Proud Chan and Ming Jingjing will also appear. Who do you want to see next? Rock Candy Sydney or Songling Rui? Or is it the boss of the center, Miss Luan? I welcome everyone to add the Fishman's prestige. You're in 22. Chapter 3904. He Luanan's appearance gave the 4 from the Iron Cloak sect a huge boost to their morale. They'd been surrounded by Ling Shan's group of 6 and 2 spirit beasts for so long, and they were already at their limits. But now, with He Luonan and the other 4, the situation had turned around. This way, they would have a total of 8 sky-class perfected masters, once again having the advantage in numbers against Ling Shan's group. After the fight just now, they could tell that while Ling Shan and the others were sky-class perfected, they didn't have enough battle experience. One-on-one, they weren't a match for them at all. 8 against 6, and every single one of them had the advantage. They could finally pay back all the frustration they'd felt earlier. Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. He Luonan smiled coldly to the 3 guests behind him. In truth, he was quite shocked by the sudden appearance of so many sky-class perfected masters under Lin Yi, but it was also because of this that he was even more determined to kill them all. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to live in peace no matter if Lin Yi made it back or not. The 3 guests nodded silently and charged into the crowd like wolves and tigers, working together with the Iron Cloak sect's group to attack Ling Shan's group. The situation took a turn for the worse. Ling Shan's group of 6 had been raised to sky class perfected by Lin Yi, but they hadn't been here for long, and they didn't have much battle experience. They weren't a match for these old monsters who'd been in isolation for hundreds of years. They were at a disadvantage in numbers, and the situation had become very dangerous. The key was that their opponents were all ruthless, and every move was deadly. They could lose their lives if they weren't careful. The 4 from the Iron Cloak sect had been able to hold on for a while because of their strong foundation, but Ling Shan's group of 6, making them face He Luonan's group of ferocious masters, that was too much. Go to hell. He Luonan had been watching from the sidelines for a while, and when he saw Ling Shan reveal an opening in her panic, he smiled savagely and was about to make his move. But before he could make a move, several silhouettes suddenly rushed over from behind, each of them carrying the powerful aura of a heaven-rank powerhouse, causing his eyelids to twitch. Heh, I thought I was late. Looks like I'm on time. Yu Bing grinned. Beside him were 2 others, Zhao Qikuan and Zhao Qijiu. Holy shit. Another 3 heaven paragons appeared. This Lin Yi isn't an ancient god, right? Why are all of his subordinates at the heaven-rank great perfection? The eyes of the Tai Yi ancestor and the others popped out of their sockets. Even He Luan had an incredulous expression on his face. A total of 9 heaven-rank great circle experts. What kind of medicine did Lin Yi's subordinates eat? What they didn't know was that this wasn't all of Lin Yi's subordinates. Qing Yi, the dean, Su Shihan, and the others were still taking care of the unconscious women. It was enough to make He Luonan and the others bite their tongues off. With this, even without General Wei Wu and the Purple Lightning Beast, Ling Shan still had 9 heaven-rank great perfection on her side, facing He Luonan and the Tai Yi sect's 8. She still had the advantage in numbers. Fuck. What kind of monster did they piss off? Why were there so many heaven-rank great perfection all over the place? The Tai Yi ancestor and the others were on the verge of tearing up. They had been suppressed by Ling Shan's group of 6, and now they finally met He Luonan. They didn't even have time to relax before the situation turned around again. This wasn't how they played. This was too shameless. Seeing how the Tai Yi sect's people looked like they were about to collapse, it was He Luonan who spoke up. So what if they have more people? It's just a few fake heaven-rank great perfection created by some unknown method. What's there to be afraid of? Kill them all for me. As he finished speaking, He Luonan led the charge towards Chun Yutian's group. Even if they were all at sky class full completion, the difference in strength was huge. He didn't believe that the 8 of them couldn't defeat these 9 brats. It was just as He Luonan had predicted. Ling Shan's side had the advantage in numbers, but when the fight started, it wasn't that obvious. After all, they only had 1 more person and 2 more spirit beasts. He Luonan and the others were experienced practitioners, after all. In a battle like this where there were tens of people, experience was just as important as strength. This way, at least, they could make up for the disadvantage in numbers, and the 2 sides were locked in a stalemate. Both sides didn't expect this sudden battle at all. He Luonan and the Tai Yi sect's people didn't expect Lin Yi to have so many heaven-rank great perfection, and Ling Shan's group didn't expect the Tai Yi sect to call He Luonan. A small city like Donghai suddenly had more than 10 heaven-rank great perfection fighting. If it weren't for the fact that they were afraid of each other and didn't dare use their strongest moves, the entire Donghai would have been flattened. But even so, it was only a matter of time before they were flattened. It was fortunate that Ling Shan and the others had moved the fainted girls to someplace else. Otherwise their hands and feet would have been tied up, and this battle would have been even more difficult. At first, the 2 sides were still afraid of each other, but the more they fought, the more furious they got, and the more they tossed their worries to the back of their minds. If this went on, casualties were inevitable. Ling Shan and the others had the advantage in numbers, but they were still weaker individually. Perhaps they wouldn't lose in the end, but if there were casualties, they'd be the first to fall. These are all newbies who haven't seen blood. They're just heaven-rank great perfection practitioners. As long as we kill a few of them in the chaos, they'll collapse on their own. He Luonan had already seen their weaknesses, and he signaled the others with his eyes, preparing to use his killing move to kill one of them. This was the benefit of having experience. No matter how chaotic the situation was, they could always find a way to break through. If they continued fighting like this, it wasn't impossible for them to kill a master with a random punch. Even He Luonan himself might not be able to make it back alive. But if they could find a chance to kill one of them first, the situation would be different. Even if they were evenly matched, they'd still be able to win without paying too much of a price. Chapter 3905. In an instant, the killing intent exploded, and before the others could even react, He Luonan and the other three had already surrounded Lingshan from 4 different directions, leaving her nowhere to run. This change was too sudden, and the others didn't expect it at all. Even Lingshan herself didn't know what was going on. It was too late to run now, and she was going to die in the next moment. You're the president of the Overseas Cultivators Association, yet you're using such a despicable method to launch a sneak attack. What an eye-opener. A gloomy voice rang out. Then, several silhouettes approached the crowd from afar. He Luonan and the others froze, and a couple of silhouettes appeared in front of them, saving Lingshan in the nick of time. Blood Cloak Ancestor? Everyone's face changed when they saw who it was, shock written all over their faces. It wasn't just the Blood Cloak Ancestor, but the Yellow Springs Ancestor, the Ensign Ancestor, and the others appeared as well. All the top masters of the Blood Cloak sect had come out. As the world's top and most terrifying assassin organization, the deterrent power of the blood-clothed underworld sect was self-evident. Even big shots like He Luan and the Iron Cloth sect paled at the mention of their name. They didn't want to provoke such a troublesome enemy. No one would have thought that their attack on Lin Yi's underlings today would draw out the blood-clothed underworld sect, and from the looks of it, they were ready to intervene forcefully. They didn't come with good intentions. The sudden appearance of the Blood Cloak sect's masters shocked both sides, and they stopped what they were doing. They wanted to see where these people stood. Seeing that everyone's eyes were on him, the Blood Cloak Ancestor smiled darkly. I'm here today to announce a piece of news. Before Master Lin Yi left, he entrusted a task to the Blood Cloak sect. From today onwards, all of his women and men will be under our protection. Whoever dares touch a hair on them will be our enemy, and we won't rest until we're dead. Hiss. He Luonan and the others couldn't help but take in a cold breath, looking at the Blood Cloak sect's masters as if they'd seen a ghost. Are UF Asterisk King sick? An assassin organization didn't go out to kill people, but suddenly came to say that they wanted to protect Lin Yi's women and underlings. Did they take the wrong medicine? Did they go crazy after being stepped on by Lin Yi previously? He Luonan and the others were still in disbelief, but those from the Iron Cloth sect. At this moment, after hearing the words of Patriarch Blood Cloak, he was really tearing up. He almost knelt down in front of everyone. For the few of them, today's encounter was simply a bitter tear. First, they were shocked by Lingshan's group of 6, waiting for Luoluo He and the others to come, and then 3 Sky-class masters jumped out. Now, they had a chance to break out of this situation, and then a Blood Cloak Yellow Springs sect popped out. How the hell were they supposed to live? In comparison, Lingshan and the others were overjoyed. They didn't expect Lin Yi to have something like this, something that could even take care of Blood Cloak Yellow Springs, making it their bodyguard. Just the thought of it was unbelievable. What they didn't know was that Blood Cloak Yellow Springs sect's appearance wasn't at Lin Yi's command, but they came to help after noticing He Luonan's group's movements. They were evenly matched, and now there was the addition of Blood Cloak Yellow Springs sect's group. He Luonan and the others from the Iron Cloth sect couldn't back down now. If they kept fighting like this, they would all die here. What do you think, Chairman He? If you want to fight again, I'm more than happy to keep you company. Patriarch Blood Cloak stared at He Luonan with a cold smile. As an ancestor-level figure in the assassin circle, if they really fought, even if they were in the same realm, he, the blood-clothed ancestor, would be a daunting monster. Ordinary people would not dare to fight with him at all. After all, his attacks were basically instant kills. Even if they were all Sky-class masters, they could still fall for his tricks. Under everyone's gaze, He Luonan held it in for a while before saying, "You win. We'll see how you do in the future." With that, He Luonan quickly led his group away, afraid that Bloodcloak and Lingshan would continue to fight without caring about the consequences. It'd be hard for them to escape if that happened. As for the Iron Cloth sect's Iron Cloak, Grand Elder, and the others, they were crawling away in fear, not daring to stay a second longer. After this battle, Lin Yi's men would be famous all over the world. 10 Sky-class masters at full mastery. One had to know that even the ancient sects wouldn't have such a shocking amount of power. Plus, they had the Bloodcloak Yellow Springs sect as helpers. Anyone who provoked them wouldn't even know how to spell the word death. Even He Luonin had to suffer like this. However, He Luoluo was not someone who would give up after suffering a setback. Now that he had suffered such a huge loss, it would be a fool's dream to ask him to give up. If Lin Yi were still in the common world, he wouldn't be able to win. But Lin Yi wasn't here anymore, and he was still being bullied by his lackeys. That was intolerable. After running out of East Ocean City, He Luonin suddenly stopped. He looked at the people from the Iron Cloak faction and said, "Guys, we've lost so much face today. If we don't get back at them, we'll become the laughingstock of all the cultivators in the world in a few days. You won't just let this go, right?" The Iron Cloak Grand Elder and the others looked at each other, troubled. "Chairman He, so what if we can't let this go? The situation is beyond our control." If it was just Lingshan and the others, the sudden appearance of 9 Sky-class masters almost made them go crazy, but to say that it was enough to scare them would be too ridiculous. But no matter what, these people were just inexperienced kids in their eyes. Even if they had the numbers advantage, it wasn't like they couldn't handle them. If they teamed up with Luonin and the others, their chances of winning were quite high. However, the crux of the problem was that the blood-clothed underworld sect had suddenly intervened without any warning. Several patriarchs came out in full force. In the face of this kind of infamous assassin ancestor-level monsters, even experienced experts like them were frightened. In their eyes, Lingshan and the others were strong, but they were just paper tigers without fangs. They looked strong on the surface, but they were nothing to be afraid of. But Bloodcloak and Yellow Springs were different. They were all battle-hardened monsters who killed without batting an eyelid. Chapter 3906. They were all smart people at their age. It was clear at a glance which one to choose between venting their anger or saving their lives. He Luonin sneered disdainfully. "No wonder your Iron Cloak sect was destroyed by Lin Yi. You suffered such a big loss, but in the end, you don't even dare to fart. You still have the nerve to call yourself an ancient sect? A turtle sect is more like it." "What did you say? President He, don't go too far." The faces of the Tai Yi ancestor and the others immediately turned red. No matter what, they were experienced experts at the great perfection of heaven rank. Being humiliated and ridiculed in front of their faces, even if they knew what was good for them, they couldn't swallow it. They weren't the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Sorry. It was a slip of the tongue." He Luonin laughed as if nothing had happened. Then he suddenly said seriously, "Gentlemen, if I can get a few more reinforcements, will you still want to retreat?" "Reinforcements? How many?" Iron Cloak Ancestor and the others suppressed their displeasure and became spirited. "I dare not say too many, but 3 heaven-rank Great Perfection experts are nothing to worry about." He Luonin pretended to be profound. He wasn't bluffing. The Central's background was amazing. It wouldn't be difficult to find 3 more heaven-rank Great Perfection experts. Iron Cloak Ancestor and the others' eyes lit up. They already had 8 heaven-rank Great Perfection experts here. If He Luonin could call 3 more, it would be a total of 11. It would be more than enough to deal with Lin Yi's subordinates. Also, I'm sure you've heard of the Black Horse Society, right? They're Lin Yi's enemies as well. If you give them a heads up, I'm sure they won't let go of this great opportunity. He Luonin threw out another bait. One had to know that Lin Yi only had 9 heaven-rank Great Perfection experts. Even if the Blood Cloak Underworld sect intervened, the 11 of them could barely deal with it. When the time came, they just had to find a way to get rid of a few weaker fellows to establish their dominance. Then, their chances of winning wouldn't be small. And if they could call the experts of the Black Horse Society, then this revenge battle would be in the bag. One had to know. The Dark Horse Gang was similar to the Blood Cloak Underworld sect. Both of them had rich combat experience. With the two restraining each other, the Dark Horse Gang had a 90% chance of success. Well, as long as president he can call for more people, we don't mind risking our lives to fight with you. The Tai martial ancestor and the others immediately said righteously. Just now, they wanted to admit defeat, but that was because they had no other choice. Now that they had the chance to take revenge, how could they be willing to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Even though he was wary of the patriarchs of the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect. But don't forget that they themselves were not easy to deal with. As long as they were not at a disadvantage in terms of numbers, they had at least an 80% chance of killing off Lin Yi's subordinates who only had levels but no actual combat experience. That's good. Let's find a place to recuperate for a while and wait for my people to come. Wan laughed. This time, he would definitely eliminate Lin Yi's underlings. While a storm was brewing in East Ocean City, in the peaceful West Star Mountain Village, an uninvited guest came with a photo in his hand. It was a photo of Lin Yi and Lin Dongfang. Lin Dongfang, who was playing with the flowers and plants, suddenly stopped. Then, he heard a resentful voice behind him. You're already an old man. Even if you can't leave the village, can't you send someone to bring me a message? Lin Dongfang turned around. Seeing the appearance of the person, he was shocked and said, Little Qing. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. The two looked at each other for a long time without speaking. And this uninvited guest was Aunt Qing. Back then, Lin Dongfang met Little Qing in the Ice Palace, and Little Qing fell in love with him at first sight. However, because of his special situation, Lin Dongfang couldn't stay in the Ice Palace. In the end, he could only reject this beauty and tell her that he was going to do a very long mission. He didn't ask for them to be together, but to forget about each other. In the blink of an eye, many years had passed. Aunt Qing was in the Ice Palace, but there was not a moment where she did not think about the man who had haunted her dreams. She asked around, racked her brains, and used every method she had. She did not let go of any chance to find Lin Dongfang. However, she failed time and time again, and was disappointed again and again. Until she saw the photo of Lin Yi and Lin Dongfang, she finally learned of Lin Dongfang's whereabouts. So, she came without hesitation. The two of them looked at each other for a long time. Aunt Qing's face was already full of tears, and Lin Dongfang's eyes were also brimming with tears. Because of Aunt Qing's appearance, his originally tranquil state of mind once again rippled with enchanting ripples. In the end, thousands of words turned into one sentence. Lin Dongfang smiled. You came? I'm here. Aunt Qing nodded heavily. She stepped forward and gently held Lin Dongfang's hand. There were no mushy words of love. Between her and Lin Dongfang, there was no need for such things. Although they hadn't seen each other for many years, at this moment, there was no sense of alienation between them. Instead, it was like an old couple that had lived together for decades, with tacit understanding and harmony. It gave people the feeling that Aunt Qing had been the mistress of this place for all these years. Now, she just went out for a walk and came back to wash Lin Dongfang's clothes and cook. Everything was so natural and natural. Now that Lin Yi has gone to Heavenly Island, I heard that the wives of his inheritors are in a coma. As a grandfather, don't you care about them? After a few warm days of isolation, Aunt Qing suddenly asked. After these few days, she had become the real mistress of this place. She and Lin Dongfang were an old couple that depended on each other. This feeling of growing old together made her feel intoxicated, but she couldn't forget about the outside world. Unlike the isolated West Star Mountain Village, Aunt Qing had always heard about the things that happened in the cultivation world before she came here. Now that Linny had gone to Heavenly Island, and his girlfriends were in a coma, although he had a group of people to protect them, Aunt Qing always felt a little worried. After all, Lin Yi could be said to have enemies on all sides. Even if he had many people under him, it was still very likely that an accident would happen. When Lin Dongfang heard this, he stretched out his hand and stroked Aunt Qing's hair. He smiled gently and said, In fact, after living here in seclusion for so many years, I have long wanted to go out and have a good walk. In particular, this kid has made such a big name for himself. Do you think I really don't care about him? The problem is that the divine strength goo in my body is in conflict, and I can't leave the spiritual spring water here. Chapter 3907. When she came here, she brought the chi-gathering pill that Lin Yi made in the Ice Palace. After Lin Dongfang took it, he had reached the peak of the heaven realm without any hindrance. Lin Dongfang shook his head with a bitter smile. I thought it would work, but now I realize that it is still not possible. The peak of the heaven realm can only suppress the voodoo and Herculean voodoo for a while, but without the spirit spring water, there will still be problems after 7 days. If even Heaven Stage Great Perfection couldn't solve this problem, then he could only place his hopes on the heavenly way. However, he, Lin Dongfang, was currently trapped in the West Star Mountain Village and couldn't get out. It was easier said than done to look forward to the heavenly way realm with his own strength. Aunt Qing hesitated for a moment and finally said, on my way here, I heard some rumors that many top masters have gathered in East Ocean City. It seems that they are going to harm Lin Yi's girlfriends and subordinates. She originally thought that after Lin Dongfang's strength reached the peak of the heaven realm, he would be able to solve the problem of not being able to leave the village, and then it would not be too late to show up. However, things were a bit tricky now. There is such a thing? Lin Dongfang frowned and suddenly stood up. Let's not delay any longer. Let's go to East Ocean now. But aren't you unable to leave the village? Aunt Qing was surprised. As long as I can come back in 7 days, this time is enough to solve the problem. Lin Dongfang smiled confidently. At this moment, the East Ocean City was already full of heroes. He Luonan and the people of the Iron Cloth faction had successfully waited for the 3 peak Heaven Realm Masters to arrive. In addition, under the enticement of He Luonan, the Masters of the Black Horse Gang also came to help, and their morale soared. He Luonan and the people of the Iron Cloth faction could only deal with Lin Yi's subordinates and the Masters of the Blood Cloak Underworld sect. They only had a slight chance of winning. Now that the Black Horse Gang had joined the alliance, this matter was set in stone. Led by He Luanhun, there were 7 Heaven Realm Peak experts, 4 Heaven Realm Peak experts from the Iron Cloth sect, and the experts from the Black Horse Gang. With such a powerful lineup, not to mention the small East Ocean City, it was more than enough to conquer the world. He gathered his men and made a comeback. He Luan Duan led a group of experts in a menacing manner, vowing to wipe out all of Lin Yi's subordinates in one fell swoop. In the eyes of He Luonan and the others, today's battle was an exhilarating one. They wanted to shock the world and let all the practitioners in the world see their strength. So from the beginning to the end, they didn't hide their strength at all. As soon as they started, they set up a crushing battle formation. The news was sent back to Lin Yi's villa immediately. Not only were Ling Shan and the others gathered there, but Lin Yi was also in the villa as well. Even the patriarchs of the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect were present. Looking at the menacing scene of He Luonan and the others, everyone present could not help but feel nervous. Even Patriarch Blood-Clothed and the others had grave expressions on their faces, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. What do we do? In the end, Ling Shan was the one who asked the question on everyone's mind. To be honest, with the strength of everyone present, including Ancestor Blood-Clothed and the others, it was not impossible for them to defeat He Luoluo and the others. But everyone understood. If they were to fight to the death like this, no matter who won or lost, more than half of the people present would die. In the end, they would probably all become ice-cold corpses. This was something unavoidable. Speaking of which, facing such a situation, the people present didn't have to fight with their lives on the line because their mission was only to protect the unconscious women. They didn't have to fight to the death with these people. Knowing that he might die, and knowing that there was no need for him to do so, if he chose to retreat now, it could be considered a wise move. It was not shameful at all. Everyone's eyes fell on Ancestor Blood-Clothed and the others. Although they were not Lin Yi's subordinates, they could be regarded as his allies. In terms of Jianghu experience, they were far richer and deeper than the younger generation. However, Ancestor Shui Yi shook his head and said, "The Blood Cloth Underworld sect's duty is to protect all of you. As for whether to fight or not, it's up to you to decide." They thought of themselves as Lin Yi's followers, but to the people here, they were still outsiders, and they didn't have a good reputation. If they spoke up, it would cause dissatisfaction and internal conflict. They might as well keep their mouths shut. At this time, Feng Tianlong suddenly said, "My suggestion is fight. Yu Tian followed. Agreed. Yu Bing, Wu Qintian, Qikuan, Qijio, Pai Jishan, and Pai Jihai all nodded, deciding to fight with their lives on the line. Everyone was afraid of death, but to practitioners like them, some things were more important than death. If they retreated today, they would be safe, but it would leave a shadow in their hearts for the rest of their lives, and they would never be able to raise their heads in front of people like He Luonan. If they didn't even dare to face people like He Luonan, how could they even talk about pursuing heavenly laws? All right, we'll wait for them to come. Lingshan took a deep breath. In fact, if they really wanted to fight to the death, they could call for more people. After all, Qingyi, Su Shirhan, and the others were already at the great perfection of the heaven realm. They could lend a hand. However, these people were responsible for protecting the unconscious girls, and most of them were girls. They weren't that strong, and the people here didn't want them to get involved. In a war, the women had to leave. This was the most basic understanding of a man. In fact, Chen Tian and the others had been trying to persuade Lingshan to leave as well, but Lingshan stubbornly stayed, and no one could change her mind. They had no choice but to give up. Half an hour later, He Luonan came back with a group of masters. Seeing them all ready for battle, He Luonan laughed without a care in the world. You guys still dare to stay here and wait for us to come? I don't know if I should praise you for your courage, or should I say that you guys have a screw loose in your brains? You're not that naive to think that you can escape this time, are you? TCH, I wonder who was the one who escaped last time. How arrogant. Chairman He. I was kind enough to let you guys go last time, and you still dare to come back? I wonder who gave you such courage, such boldness. Tianlong laughed coldly. Chapter 3908. He immediately snorted coldly and said, You have a sharp tongue, but this is the only time you can show off your sharp tongue. Humph, kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. With a command, the two sides, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately started fighting. In the blink of an eye, the wind and clouds surged, and the sky changed color. Over 20 heaven-rank great perfection experts from both sides were fighting with all their might. Such a spectacular and astonishing scene was absolutely unprecedented in the secular world, especially in the era of the Hotian rank island plan where experts were scarce. Today's unprecedented battle was bound to shake the world. As time went on, Lingshan and the others fought with all their might, and even with the help of the Bloodcloak elders, their lack of battle experience was showing itself once more. Chen Tian, Yu Bing, and the others were all injured, and the scales of victory were tipping towards He Luonan's side. This was something both sides had foreseen. In fact, the moment they made the decision to fight, Lingshan and the others had already prepared themselves for death. However, even if he had to die, he had to drag a few people down with him. When a person didn't hesitate to risk their life, their potential would inevitably be unearthed, especially when that person was at the great perfection of the heaven rank. Seeing Chen Tian and the others die one by one, He Luoluo and the others were feeling proud of themselves, but then they realized that something was amiss. These people had suddenly switched to a fighting style that didn't care about their lives. F***CKME. What the hell was wrong with these people's brains? They had no enmity with each other. So was it necessary for them to risk their lives like idiots just because of Lin Yi's order? Had they all been brainwashed? He Luodu couldn't help but curse. Although they had the upper hand in the situation, and if nothing went wrong, they would definitely win in the end. But Chen Tian and the others were fighting with their lives on the line. Even if they got the last laugh, they wouldn't stand a chance. He would have to pay a heavy price. He Luan Duan himself might even be dragged down with him to his death. Tisk, do you think you can win just by risking your life? You're really delusional. What a joke. He Luonan sneered. When it came to playing with one's life and not being afraid of death, who could compare to the biochemical experts he had brought? With just a glance, a few biogenesis masters understood, and two of them stopped Qintian's and Yu Bing's attacks even at the cost of their heavy injuries. As for He Luonan and the others who were cruising around, they were waiting for an opportunity to deal the killing blow. However, at this moment, He Luonan's eyelids suddenly twitched, and his heart trembled. A person, a plain and ordinary old man who did not have any true chi fluctuations on his body, nor did he have the aura of an expert. This seemingly ordinary old man suddenly appeared in the center of the battlefield without any warning. It's been too long since I last fought with anyone. My old bones are about to rust. The old man smiled in a self-mocking manner. After saying that, the old man threw a simple punch at the empty space beside him. It seemed that he was not aiming at any target at all. He was just stretching his arms and legs in the air. Boom, boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, there were 3 consecutive sounds. He Luanan's eyes suddenly widened, and his jaw was dislocated from the shock. His mind was in a daze. It took him a long time to regain his senses. As the old man did this, the 3 biochemical experts he brought with him all had their chests pierced through. They had become 3 lifeless corpses. Not bad. It seems that you haven't regressed much. Looking at the miserable deaths of the 3 biochemical experts, the old man calmly nodded. The originally apocalyptic battlefield suddenly quieted down because of the old man's appearance. Everyone unconsciously stopped and looked at the old man with respect and fear. Casually killing 3 biochemical experts at heaven stage great perfection with one move. What kind of strength was this? Damn, could this old man be a super expert from Heaven Stage Island? Suddenly, Ancestor Shui and the others knelt down in front of everyone with a face full of excitement. They kowtowed and said in unison, Shui, Huang Quan, and In Sin, greet the master. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in shock. This old man was actually the master of Ancestor Shui and the others from Yellow Spring Sect? Before he Luonan and the others could recover from the shock, the leaders of the Black Horse Gang had already knelt down on the ground. Each of them trembled as if they were walking on thin ice. Master, Master Lin, spare us. Master Lin? What kind of divine being was this? Was he an elder of Lin-E? He Luonan and the others were even more puzzled. They looked at the people from Black Horse Gang in a daze. These people were on their side. What the hell was the meaning of them kneeling down to this old man? Seeing that he Luonan was about to flip out, the leader of the Black Horse Gang who was kneeling on the ground secretly winked at him and mouthed 3 words, Lin Dongfang. Damn. After understanding the meaning of this person, he Luonan and the others' minds suddenly went blank. This old man was actually one of the twin killers of Vajra, Lin Dongfang. Everyone present was a veteran expert. Who didn't know the illustrious reputation of the twin killers of Vajra? Even if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they had at least heard of it. In the world of cultivation, these 2 were like gods. Who dared to provoke them? Even someone as daring as he Luodan was scared silly after hearing Lin Dongfang's name. His legs turned to jelly, and he almost wet his pants. Hee, it seems that you still recognize me. That's rare. But since you dared to make a move on my nephew's people, you should be prepared to pay the price. Lin Dongfang smiled faintly. Back then, the leader of Black Horse Gang, Qin Paguang, died under his fist. It was not surprising that these experts from Black Horse Gang could recognize him. Damn, it's true. He Luonan and the others suddenly felt their scalps go numb. Just now, they hoped that these people from Black Horse Gang had made a mistake. But now, Lin Dongfang had admitted it himself. More importantly, Lin Dongfang's words revealed that Lin-E was actually his nephew. This news was like a bolt from the blue. When they thought about how they were going against Lin Dongfang's nephew, this kind of life-risking matter made them shudder with fear. Listening to Lin Dongfang's words, he Luonan and the others, who were just showing off their prowess, were stunned. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. The Vajra Dual Evil's illustrious reputation was built upon the deaths of countless experts. An expert of Lin Dongfang's level could not be estimated with common sense. If they underestimated him even a little, they might follow in the footsteps of the 3 experts at Heaven Stage Great Perfection. Don't look at them because they were all ambitious and ruthless people. If Lin Dongfang wanted to kill them, it would be no different from killing chickens. Seeing Lin Dongfang's indifferent gaze sweeping over, he Luonan suddenly shouted, "Run!" Before his voice died away, he had already flashed 100 meters away. The rest of the people who were too scared to move suddenly reacted at this moment. Taking advantage of the fact that Lin Dongfang had yet to make a move, They scattered in all directions in an incomparably embarrassing manner. If they waited until Lin Dongfang really wanted to kill them, it would be extremely difficult for them to escape. Seeing these people escape, Lin Dongfang had no intentions of chasing after them. 1. These people were running in different directions, and he couldn't catch them all. 2. He had been living in seclusion in West Star Village for many years, and his state of mind had long since returned to its original state. Under normal circumstances, he would rarely have killing intent. In an instant, He Luonan and the others had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only 3 corpses. Seeing this scene, and then looking at the kneeling elder Bloodreeb and the others, Lingshan and the others were completely dumbfounded. So many of them had risked their lives, but they still couldn't defeat the enemy. Yet, this old man had actually scared the enemy away with just a few simple words. This was too exaggerated and too surreal. Chapter 3909. In theory, no one could react in such a long distance in such a short time. At least among the opponents that Linny had encountered so far, including Nan Tianyong, the peak late foundation stage master, who was killed by him with the super true chi bomb, absolutely could not do this. Hey, sure enough, it is a place where even the masters of the gold core stage may lose their lives. Although I don't know the true face of this guy below, it is really very tricky. Watching the scarlet tentacle shooting toward him, Lin Yi was shocked. At this moment, he was in midair, unable to change his speed or adjust his direction. It was the most powerless time. Once he was caught by the scarlet tentacle or even rolled into the half-moon lake, then with his strength, there would only be one end, death. However, Lin Yi did not take this lightly. He had long been prepared. During the hour when he was observing the movement pattern of the giant spirit beast at the bottom of the lake, he had not been idle. He was accumulating strength to prepare a strong enough trump card. At the critical moment, the super true chi bomb that had been accumulating for a long time was immediately thrown out and smashed down. Boom. After a slightly dull shock, the lake gradually calmed down. Looking at the scene under his feet, even Lin Yi could not close his mouth for a long time. What shocked Lin Yi even more was that this scarlet tentacle had obviously been hit by his super true chi bomb, but the result was that it only hindered its movement. There was not even a scar left on it. It was still scarlet and smooth, and it was still alive. What a terrible thing. Lin Yi was very afraid. Even the super true chi bomb could not deal with the existence of the existence. It was far beyond his ability. Any idea of fighting with it was courting death. It was already very lucky to be able to go back alive this time. However, the super true chi bomb just now was not at all useless. At least it successfully blocked the attack of the scarlet tentacle, and Lin Yi took this opportunity to finally rush to the trunk of the central fir tree. It was just that this was not the time to breathe a sigh of relief, because the length of this scarlet tentacle was extremely considerable. Lin Yi was now at the edge of the fir tree, and he could be swept down at any time, and this time, he had no super Jin Chi bombs in his hands to rely on. He didn't have time to check if there were any other unknown dangers lurking in the treetops. The only thing he had to do right now was, he had to get rid of the red tentacle below him. If he couldn't do this immediately, with the speed the tentacle had displayed just now, he would really be in danger today. As Lin Yi tried his best to get up, the tentacle had been watching him from below. Perhaps there was a chance for him to escape. He would immediately strike like lightning and kill with one strike. Fortunately, Lin Yi was decisive enough to move 20 meters away from the surface of the lake. The scarlet tentacle resentfully retracted back into the lake. As the last ripple calmed down, the half-moon lake once again returned to its previous tranquility, and this strange tentacle seemed to have never appeared. Phew! As expected of my little junior brother, his strength is much stronger than my senior sister. It seems that I have to practice hard after going back. I can't be left too far behind by little junior brother. Shanghai Laner, who was hiding behind the tree and watching the battle, was greatly relieved. Isn't that right, little white? The little curly bear also nodded. Although the scene just now was extremely short, Shanghai Laner, the eldest miss, could also see the crisis in it. If it was any other peak early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, Even a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator would have been directly killed. It was impossible to escape unscathed like Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi himself was not as relaxed as Shanghai Laner imagined. At this moment, he was standing on the canopy of the fir tree. In the blink of an eye, his whole body had been soaked in cold sweat. Facing this red tentacle, he felt as if his life would be taken away at any moment. It was as if he was facing the god of death that had descended upon the world. It had been a long time since he'd felt this kind of fear. What the hell is this guy? It's just a tentacle and it's already so abnormal. If it really comes, how can people live? Lin, he couldn't help but wonder in his heart. Even if he hadn't seen the true face of Mount Lushan, judging from the huge shadow at the bottom of the lake, this tentacle could never be its full strength. Maybe it was just a small means used to kill prey. A single tentacle was already able to withstand the power of a super Jinchi bomb and come out unscathed. Then, the strength of its main body was even more unimaginable. No wonder it could kill a powerful gold core stage master. It was really not a small matter. Forget it. Since I've already come up, let's find a way to find the thing first. Lin Yi shook his head and left the huge spirit beast at the bottom of the lake behind him. Anyway, it seemed that this thing would not come up easily. If it was in this fir tree, he didn't have to worry about its threat for the time being. However, although the step just now was extremely thrilling, Lin Yi didn't think that after reaching the fir tree, it was already a success. According to the logic that the closer to the treasure, the more dangerous it was, now was the real fatal time. There were often powerful spirit beasts guarding around the treasures of heaven and earth. The unknown behemoth at the bottom of the lake was already a terrifying monster. However, after all, it couldn't climb the tree, and it couldn't really get close to the heart of this giant fir tree. This was its natural disadvantage. Chapter 39:10. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi jumped down secretly and immediately found something wrong. This tree hole was extraordinarily deep. When he observed it from the outside, although this fir tree was huge and unique in this area of Half Moon Lake, it was only 50 to 60 meters high. However, from the feeling that Lin Yi jumped down at this moment, it was at least 100 meters away. To be precise, it was about 150 meters. If Lin Yi hadn't stepped on the wall in time to slow down, he would have suffered internal injuries from falling from such a height. Boom! With a muffled sound, Lin Yi landed on the ground, stirring up dust. The bottom of the cave was unexpectedly dry. The visible place was empty, because the walls and the bottom of the cave were parasitic with fluorescent microorganisms like the ones in Half Moon Lake outside. It was like a spirit jade mine inlaid with fluorite, and the visibility was quite high. However, in this way, Lin Yi felt even more strange and vigilant. Unsurprisingly, they were now at the bottom of the lake, which meant that the giant fir tree did not grow above the lake like what they had seen before. Instead, it grew from the bottom of the lake. What they saw outside just now was just a small part of the top of the giant fir tree. It was worthy of being an ancient tree that had existed since the discovery of Half Moon Lake. It was thousands, or even tens of thousands of years old. If it was a spirit beast, it would have long been powerful and invincible. Unfortunately, this was just a tree. In the empty tree hole, when Lin Yi was about to explore carefully, a voice suddenly sounded, making his hair stand. I haven't seen a living person for a long time. It has been a whole 3 years. I've been lonely for so long, and finally one. Today, I can finally be happy. The voice came from all directions of the tree hole, and it was hard to tell whether it was a man or a woman, laughing wickedly. Lin Yi's muscles instantly tightened, but his face remained calm. He said in a deep voice, "Who are you?" "Who am I?" The voice paused, and then seemed to be a little distressed. "I've also thought about this for a long time, but I haven't been able to figure it out." "Forget it. Let's not think about such an annoying problem. This is a rare opportunity. Let's play a game first." "What game?" Lin Yi's heart trembled. "Not bad." Lin Yi nodded. The 1,000-year tree crystal was the core material that Shanghai Laner was preparing to use for forging. It was also the main purpose of their trip. According to the records, the 1,000-year tree crystal was an extremely rare natural treasure. only a small number of tree species with extremely high spiritual chi could be found. It could only be condensed after thousands of years of lifespan. It was a priceless treasure that truly gathered the essence of the sun and moon and seized the fortune of heaven and earth. Even in the back mountain, where there were countless treasures, there were only a handful of places where one could find a 1,000-year tree crystal. In the outer area of the back mountain, only the half-moon lake had a 1,000-year tree crystal. It was evident. In fact, after learning this news, not only for the sake of Shanghai Laner, but also for Lin Yi himself, he had to take this risk. That was because the 1,000-year tree crystal had a very rare use, and that was to increase the grade of a weapon during the forging process. Ever since they came to Heaven Stage Island, because they had been staying in the Welcome Pavilion, Lin Yi and the other newcomers had almost never used god weapons. Firstly, it was strictly forbidden in the Welcome Pavilion. Otherwise, if they really used a weapon in a battle, just the challenge round alone would probably result in the death of a large number of rookies. Secondly, Heaven Stage god weapons could not withstand the chi of a Foundation Establishment Stage cultivator at all. If chi was injected into it, it would be destroyed immediately. Therefore, the fine steel staff in Lin Yi's hand had never been revealed. It was temporarily useless, and naturally, he did not have the idea of increasing its grade. Even after meeting the Scrap King in the market, although they had an agreement, Lin Yi was not in a hurry to put this matter on the agenda. After all, while dealing with the newcomer assessment, he also had to cultivate the heart-devouring exquisite grass and try to refine the Foundation Establishment pill. At the same time, he also had to be on guard against the people from Southern Skygate. Therefore, Lin Yi had not been idle during this period. However, now that he had coincidentally encountered it, Lin Yi naturally would not let go of this opportunity. In any case, he would definitely need to use a weapon when he fought in the future. If the fine steel staff was still in Heaven Stage, it was obviously far from enough. It was imperative to increase its grade. Under normal circumstances, once a weapon was forged, it meant that it had already been finalized. There was no possibility of changing it unless it was destroyed and reforged. However, even then, only some of the main materials could be extracted, such as fine steel, dark steel, and so on. Most of the auxiliary materials would be wasted. However, the existence of the 1,000-year tree crystal was an exception. Not only could it increase the grade of a weapon during the forging process, it could even give a weapon that had already been finalized a chance to advance. Although it was only once, it was already very rare. Therefore, whether it was for Shanghai Laner or for himself, Lin Yi was determined to obtain the 1,000-year tree crystal. The ghostly voice sounded again. As long as you can win the next game, I can give you a 1,000-year tree crystal, too, Lin Yi said without raising his head. Although he still did not know who the other party was, judging from its tone and words, it should be a powerful spiritual beast hidden in this place. It might even be the guardian spiritual beast that Lin Yi had speculated. However, it could not leave this place for some reason, which was why it said that it was lonely. Since the other party had proposed to play a game, it at least meant that it had no intention of fighting him to the death for the time being. Lin Yi knew that with his current strength, his chances of winning against this mysterious and unknown spiritual beast would be pitifully low. On the contrary, if he agreed to the other party's request, there might be a chance of success. However, it was not Lin Yi's style to be led by the nose by the other party so easily. Even if he could not set the rules of the game, he had to find his way back. 2. KSK, although your strength is pitifully weak, you're really a greedy fellow. The voice laughed strangely for a while before saying, Fine, fine. You've been lonely for so long. Take it as a reward for you. As long as you can win, I'll give you 2,000-year tree crystals. It's a deal. Lin Yi nodded calmly, but his heart was filled with shock. The wooden image walked out of the cave wall, stretching its shoulders. Aside from a bit of burnt skin, there wasn't a single trace of damage on its body. He did not seem to have any serious or fatal injuries. Not only that, even the burning characteristic of the 23rd form of the Frenzy Fist did not appear on his body at all. It should be known that this characteristic was something that even Yu Jia, a middle-stage foundation establishment expert, would not be able to withstand. Back then, they were all helpless. Was this thing really made out of wood? Linny looked at this mirror image puppet and could not help but have a feeling of disbelief and absurdity. 23rd form of the frenzied flame fist hit a puppet, but the puppet was not burned to ashes. Instead, it seemed to be even more energetic. Not only that, he felt that this was just a puppet that looked like him. After being bombarded by the frenzied fire fist, after the bombardment of the frenzied flame fist, as if it had been injected with some kind of vitality, its body actually emitted a powerful aura that was no different from a real person. And this aura? Lin Yi's eyelids suddenly twitched, and then he saw the mirror image puppet suddenly fly towards him, and on its right fist, a fiery hot fist intent condensed. This fiery fist intent was exactly the same as the 23rd form of the frenzied flame fist that Linny had just used. Boom! The mirror image puppet's fist hit the ground, leaving a deep, charred pit. Looking at its power, it seemed to be even stronger than the original version of the 23rd form of the frenzied flame fist that Lin Yi had just used. If Lin Yi did not dodge in time, he would have been seriously injured. The fear in Lin Yi's heart grew even stronger. He could even imitate this casually. Who was this guy? Any martial technique must be practiced diligently in order to be able to successfully cultivate it. Even the most talented geniuses could only shorten this time, and could not directly skip it. However, the other party directly imitated it in front of him. This ability was simply so heaven-defying that it made one's hair stand on end. What was even more exaggerated was that, according to Lin Yi's speculation, the mirror image puppet in front of him might not even be the other party's deity. It was just a toy that was temporarily made up, nothing more. A toy was already so abnormal to such an extent, then how terrifying was this guy's deity? Strictly speaking, it was probably much more terrifying than the unknown ferocious creature swimming in the half-moon lake outside. Perhaps only this person could cause a powerful golden core stage expert to fall here. How about it? Challenging yourself is a compulsory course for every cultivator. Humans like to boast shamelessly. Now, let's see what kind of answer you can produce when facing the other you, the ghostly voice said in a cruel tone. Interesting. Linny looked at the mirror image puppet in front of him and sneered. It's just an imitation puppet, and you dare to claim to be the other me? Don't you think you're too arrogant? Is that so? Then hurry up and prove it to me. As long as I pay the price of 2,000-year tree crystals, I'll be able to watch such a good show. I can't wait any longer. Speaking of which, if you die, I won't even have to pay this price. Hee, then open your eyes and watch carefully. Linny smiled faintly. Things had developed to this point, and the initial shock had gradually been suppressed at the bottom of his heart. The only thing he had to do now was to defeat the so-called mirror image in front of him. Using the butterfly subtle steps to the extreme in an instant, Lin Yi's figure was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. After flashing around the mirror image puppet for a while, he suddenly attacked it. This time, he did not use any martial technique, just ordinary but powerful punches and kicks. Unexpectedly, at the same time as Linny moved, the mirror image puppet's figure also began to flash at the same time. Its movement was exactly the same as Lin Yi's, but it was even faster and purer. Chapter 39:12. In this way, the ability of this mirror puppet was about to be revealed. Because of the unknown powerful spirit beast behind it, this mirror puppet should be able to quickly imitate any move. However, there was a premise, and that was that he had to use it in front of it. The previous frenzied fire fist and the current butterfly subtle steps were all like this. This also proved that the puppet in front of him was at most an imitation puppet and not a so-called mirror image. Otherwise, if it was really a copy of the mirror image, the strongest frenzy fire 8 trigrams palm would have long been used to deal with Lin Yi. Bang, bang, bang. After a burst of dense and dull sounds of fists and feet colliding, accompanied by the mirror puppet's frenzy fire fist 23 style, the two figures made contact and then separated. Not bad, not bad. To be able to fight with the mirror image to this extent, you are the first. Because I deliberately increased the strength of the mirror image by a level compared to the main body. Many people have been crushed one-sidedly. This is really more and more interesting. The ghostly voice praised. Because the mirror puppet and the main body used the same martial skills and abilities, there was no advantage or disadvantage between them. When the strength of the opponent increased by a level, even if it was only a little bit, it would eventually lead to a one-sided crushing situation. This kind of similar restraint was even more difficult to deal with than the natural restraint of fire restraining wood. This was because the things you could do, the opponent could also do the same, or even better. Even if the opponent was not a real mirror image, but just a fabricated imitation puppet, every time a martial skill was used, the opponent could immediately imitate it, and even stronger. This imitation puppet would continue to grow stronger in the process of fighting. When the main body used his full strength, it would become an existence completely above the main body, invulnerable. Linny had seen through this long ago, so he did not rashly use a trump card like Frenzy Fire 8 Trigram's Palm. Once the mirror puppet grasped his strongest trump card, he would be completely at a disadvantage. The ghostly voice saw through Linny's plan. It laughed strangely and said, "You are not going to use a stronger move? This idea is not bad." Among the 10 people who came here, about 3 of them were able to think of this, so I must praise you. However, even among these people, only a few succeeded in the end. Linny was slightly startled, but before he could think about it, the ghostly voice continued. "Although a 1,000-year tree crystal isn't anything important to me, it's still a rare bargaining chip. If I give it away so easily, I won't have anyone to spend time with me in the future. So, do you already have the resolve to obtain the 1,000-year tree crystal from me?" Understanding. Linny raised his eyebrows and sneered. "You're really a guy who likes to pretend to be profound. What you're trying to say is that I don't have the confidence to defeat you head-on, right?" Roar, "You've even thought of this? Your ability to comprehend is truly astonishing. To be honest, I'm starting to admire you more and more. I hope your next performance won't disappoint me." The ghostly voice laughed strangely. His voice fell. The mirror puppet suddenly performed the butterfly subtle steps, bursting out with unprecedented speed and pouncing straight at Linny. Linny clenched his fists expressionlessly. The moment he figured out the mirror puppet's ability, he had already realized that today's battle would be an unprecedented struggle. This mirror puppet was superior to the original in all aspects, and the possibility of winning was next to none. This mirror puppet was superior to the original in every aspect, so the possibility of winning against it was next to nothing. Especially if he used all his trump cards, there would be no chance of winning at all. The mirror puppet's ability to imitate was destined to constantly evolve. When the main body used up all of its strength, and it had also fully grasped the main body's abilities, when faced with an all-encompassing version of itself, no one would be its opponent. On the contrary, if he deliberately hid some of his trump cards and did not use them, leaving the mirror puppet as a half-finished product from beginning to end, then there might be a chance of survival. In Linny's eyes, if the opponent could use the Frenzy 8 Trigram's Palm like him, then because this was his limit, he would not be able to master it to perfection. Naturally, he would not have the confidence to use it to win against this stronger mirror puppet. However, if he did not use the Frenzy 8 Trigram's Palm, but the most ordinary fist and foot techniques, because Linny could completely master them, he would have the power to fight against this mirror puppet. This was just Linny's conjecture, and it was also the only strategy he could come up with in this short period of time. However, this strategy only provided a small possibility. He had found a small crack in the secret room that had no blind spots, but if he wanted to escape, he still needed the strength to smash this crack. This was the realization that the ghostly voice had mentioned. Linny and the mirror puppet shuttled back and forth like lightning, colliding with each other. Apart from the 23 forms of the Frenzy Fist and the butterfly subtle steps that he had used at the beginning, the rest were the most basic fist and foot techniques. Constantly honed since young, Linny's grasp of the fist and foot techniques that he was good at had long reached the peak. Moreover, because it was completely within the scope of his ability, he could display his understanding and comprehension of fist and foot techniques without any scruples. On the other hand, although the mirror puppet was also imitating Lin Yi's fist and foot fighting style. Because it was a temporary imitation, even if the power of its fists and feet surpassed Lin Yi's by a level, it was completely unable to achieve the level of mastery that Lin Yi had. This was the mirror puppet's only flaw. This fist and foot battle lasted for a full hour, and finally ended with Lin Yi using his fists and feet to smash the mirror puppet. The price he paid was a left leg, a right arm, 3 ribs, and countless bone fractures all over his body. This was a complete and utter Pyrrhic victory, but for Lin Yi, it was an out-and-out great victory. This kind of opportunity to fight with oneself was something that could only be encountered by chance in one's cultivation career. Not only could one hone their skills in a hardy battle, but more importantly, one could take the opportunity to have a deeper understanding of oneself. Only the enemy was the creature that understood oneself the best, and when one became one's own enemy, this kind of understanding would inevitably be more intuitive and profound. This was an unprecedented perspective, and naturally, there would be unprecedented gains. Just like the current Lin Yi, after this mirror battle, he had been reborn. Even as the ruler, he could already clearly feel the transformation that had taken place in his body. Chapter 39:13. In this kind of battle, not only were you able to obtain the final victory, but your strength was also able to skyrocket. Amongst the human practitioners, you can be considered a rare monster. In the last 100 years, there has only been one person who has managed to do this. Your performance is comparable to that of Gong Yangjia. Today's show was truly worth watching. The ghostly voice did not conceal its praise at all. Ramjia? He's been here before? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Although the law enforcement hall's hall master, Ramjia, had not had much interaction with him so far, his intuition told him that he would definitely compete with this top figure of the 3 great pavilions' younger generation in the future. The reason why they did not have any interaction was because Lin Yi's foundation was still shallow and his level was too low. He was far from being able to catch Ramjia's eye. Well, it's rare to see someone who left a deep impression on me and whose name I still remember. Speaking of which, what's your name? The ghostly voice suddenly asked. Lin Yi. Lin Yi did not hide anything and said directly, 2,000-year tree crystals. Can you give them to me now? TSK, you're just as impatient as I am. The ghostly voice laughed strangely and said, don't worry. I won't go so far as to renege on a debt for just 2,000-year tree crystals. But before that, do you want to play another game? What do you mean? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. What I mean is, since the opportunity is so rare, wouldn't it be too wasteful to let you go after just one game? As the ghostly voice sounded, the ground suddenly surged again. Just like the mirror puppet earlier, another human-like puppet emerged, but this time, it was not Lin Yi's mirror image. It had no face and no expression. 1,000-year tree crystals. Looking at the 2 dark green crystal objects in the puppet's hands, Lin Yi's eyelids suddenly twitched. He had seen the atlas brought by Shanghai Laner on his way here, and it was the 1,000-year tree crystal he was looking for. The faceless puppet weighed the 2,000-year tree crystals in its hand, and its ghostly voice rang out, let's fight again with these 2,000-year tree crystals as stakes. If you can win, I'll take out a treasure that's far more valuable than the 1,000-year tree crystals, a treasure that you absolutely can't refuse. What do you think? What treasure? Lin Yi asked without batting an eyelid. However, in his heart, he was secretly suspicious of the faceless puppet in front of him. Was this the true body of the other party? The faceless puppet cackled and casually threw the 2,000-year tree crystals to the side. It reached into its heart and dug out a slightly charred piece of wood. This is it, the 10,000-year tree crystal. 10,000-year tree crystal. When he heard this word, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. A 1,000-year tree crystal was already an extremely rare treasure, but a 10,000-year tree crystal could only be produced by an ancient tree that was at least 10,000 years old. An ancient tree that could live for such a long time was already very rare. In the entire world, there were probably only a few of them, and the older the tree, the higher the possibility of it being targeted by human cultivators and other powerful spirit beasts because of its treasure. The number of ancient trees that could live for more than 10,000 years was extremely rare, not just in the back mountains, but in other places as well. Moreover, most of them were unable to produce tree crystals. The rarity of a 10,000-year tree crystal was evident. If the charred piece of wood in this fellow's hand was really a 10,000-year tree crystal, its value was not below that of a star inkstone. A 1,000-year tree crystal can only give a weapon a single chance to upgrade its grade, but a 10,000-year tree crystal, as long as it's used well, can give you at least 3 chances, or even more. You can have a chance to obtain a 10,000-year tree crystal with just 2,000-year tree crystals as a stake. If you miss this chance, you might not get it again in the future. The faceless puppet weighed the charred piece of wood in its hand and tempted Lin Yi. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi did not even bat an eyelid. He directly stretched out his hand and said, "Throw those 2,000-year tree crystals to me." The faceless puppet paused for a moment, but it still did not give up. "These are genuine 10,000-year tree crystals. Are you really willing to let go of them just like that?" Lin Yi was still indifferent. "Don't you think you're being a little too long-winded? If you don't want to go back on your word, then give me those 2,000-year tree crystals. As for the 10,000-year tree crystal, it's not within my ability, and I won't dream about it." "Oh? You can actually remain so calm in the face of the temptation of a 10,000-year tree crystal. I really admire you more and more." The faceless puppet praised with a strange smile. Then, it suddenly paused, and its tone became extremely cold. "What if I say no? What are you going to do?" "If that's the case, then there's no other way." There was no panic on Lin Yi's face, as if he was already mentally prepared for this. From the very beginning, he did not completely trust this elusive guy. He did not even know what the other party's true body was. If Lin Yi still trusted it without reservation, then he would be very stupid. "Hee, you've accepted reality so quickly?" "That's right. A smart guy like you should have already seen that the rules of this place can only be set by me. Since it's my request, you can only do as I say in the end, whether you're willing or not. Otherwise, there's only one outcome." The faceless puppet laughed sinisterly. "If I don't do as you say, I can only be killed by you in the end. It's really rare to see a guy like you who talks to himself." Lin Yi sneered. Although he could totally use the space in the jade pendant to snatch the tree crystal, if he did not do as this guy said, only death would be waiting for him in the end. This guy was really a headache. Why do you have to be so mean? You can use a mere 2,000-year tree crystals to fight for a 10,000-year tree crystal. If such an opportunity was given to someone else, it would be more than what they could ask for. Hurry up and recover. I won't hold back later. I can't wait to start the game." Although the puppet was faceless, Lin Yi could clearly feel the ferocious smile on its face at the moment. After a while, seeing that Lin Yi seemed to have almost recovered, the faceless puppet immediately said anxiously, "If you win, you can get the 10,000-year tree crystal. If you lose, you'll get nothing. Game start." Before it finished speaking, the faceless puppet's figure flashed, and it instantly descended on top of Lin Yi's head. So fast, Lin Yi didn't even have time to react before a heavy blow landed on him. The strength of the mirror puppet that Lin Yi had faced before was still limited to the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment to the middle stage of foundation establishment. Even if it was stronger than that, it was still within the scope of Lin Yi's ability. Chapter 39:14. With just one hit, Lin Yi was seriously injured. His body was stuck at the bottom of the tree hole, and he was unable to move. Game over. I thought it would be more or less interesting. I didn't expect you to be so weak that you couldn't even withstand a single hit. How disappointing. In comparison, Ramjia at least held on for a while. The faceless puppet was extremely disappointed, looking at this guy circling around him, although Lin Yi was unwilling. In the face of the opponent's absolute strength, no matter how exquisite a strategy he came up with, it would be useless. Moreover, the opponent was a gloomy and cunning existence. "If I just kill you like this, it seems a bit of a pity. How about you stay here as my slave? Although you're so weak that you can't withstand a single hit, if you're used to relieve boredom, it's not a bad idea. It's better than nothing." The faceless puppet pinched its chin and laughed evilly. "Slave?" Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. If it simply wanted to kill him, it would have been fine. But now it wanted to turn him into a slave for him to play with. It was really infuriating. It's decided. Slaves only need to listen. They don't need to have their own opinions. So let's start by destroying your divine sense. Along with the voice, the faceless puppet grabbed the top of Lin Yi's head with one hand. Lin Yi suddenly felt his scalp tingle. At this time, his feet had been restricted, and he was seriously injured. There was no room for resistance. With the faceless puppet's ability, if it wanted to destroy his divine sense, it would only take a single thought. However, just as the faceless puppet was about to succeed, an unprecedented pressure suddenly descended on the huge tree hole. Even the sturdy cave walls seemed to be unable to withstand it, and cracks appeared on them. Who is it? The faceless puppet was shocked and instantly retreated to the far end of the tree hole. It was on full alert, as if it was facing a great enemy. You want to destroy this kid's divine sense right under my eyes. I really don't know who gave you the courage. The ghostly thing's familiar voice sounded from Lin Yi's body. Who the hell are you? The faceless puppet's body began to tremble uncontrollably. At this moment, the pressure that was pressing down on its head was unimaginably powerful. Even an existence like it could not arouse the slightest thought of contending against the other party. It could only barely maintain its body and suppress the urge to kneel in the depths of its consciousness. Just a moment ago, it was still a powerful existence that toyed with Lin Yi. But now, in the blink of an eye, the tables had turned. In front of the ghostly thing, the elder of the North Island Spirit Beast clan, even if it was just a simple primordial spirit, it would not be able to withstand it. It still didn't have the slightest chance to resist. Its instincts towards danger told it that even the slightest thought of resisting would definitely cause it to die a tragic death. Up until now, it had lived for tens of thousands of years. It didn't want to die. It wanted to continue living. Faced with the faceless puppet's doubts, the ghostly thing did not have the slightest intention to explain its identity. Instead, it used its divine sense to speak to Lin Yi. This is not a place to stay for long. Pack your things and leave quickly. Lin Yi was stunned when he heard this. From what he knew, all spirit beasts could only obediently bow their heads in front of the ghostly thing. This was no exception even after coming to Heaven Stage Island. However, judging from the ghostly thing's tone, the fellow in front of him seemed to be no small matter. Without much hesitation, Lin Yi gathered his vital energy and suddenly smashed the ground with his palm, freeing himself. Then, without saying a word, he took the 2,000-year tree crystals that the other party had thrown on the ground. That was not all. Lin Yi did not stop there. Instead, he directly rushed to the front of the faceless puppet. He calmly stretched out his hand and said, "Give me the 10,000-year tree crystal." The faceless puppet was stunned and instinctively wanted to kill Lin Yi. However, under the terrifying pressure of the ghostly thing, it did not dare to move at all. It could only watch as Lin Yi walked over step by step and took the 10,000-year tree crystal from its body. One 10,000-year tree crystal, 2,000-year tree crystals, and the fight with the mirror puppet. Lin Yi's harvest this time could be said to be extremely rich. After that, Lin Yi turned around and climbed up the cave wall with his bare hands. This was the bottom of the lake. If he wanted to leave, there was only one hole, and that was to climb out from the hole at the top. With Lin Yi's skill, it was not difficult for him to climb up to a height of 150 meters. However, it would take some time, and it was during this time that the situation suddenly changed. The faceless puppet, who was originally suppressed by the ghostly thing's terrifying pressure, did not dare to move. However, it took this opportunity to appear behind Lin Yi in an instant, ready to kill him with one blow. Lin Yi's heart palpitated. The other party's speed was too fast. It was several times faster than what it had shown just now. He could not react at all. Fortunately, he did not need to react. Boom! The faceless puppet suddenly exploded in the air, shattering into powder and dissipating. At the same time, Lin Yi successfully climbed up the hole at the top and saw the light of day again. "Senior, you were the one who attacked just now, right? You really scared me," Lin Yi said after surviving a disaster. He could not have defended himself against this kind of attack just now. However, he did not expect that this guy would actually shatter into powder. Only a ghostly thing could do this. Don't be too happy. This is just a toy of that guy. That's why I could so easily crush it with my divine sense. If it was really the real body, with the current state of my primordial spirit, I might not be able to do anything to it. The ghostly thing reminded him. Lin Yi's heart trembled again. That faceless puppet was really just a toy made by the other party and not the real body. Senior, who is that guy? Lin Yi could not help but ask. Boy, what do you think? The ghostly thing did not answer but asked. Lin Yi frowned and thought for a while. He said uncertainly, I feel that this guy should be some kind of unusually powerful spirit beast. However, it's hard to imagine what its real body looks like. There's no need to imagine. The thing under your feet is its real body. The ghostly thing explained. What? This giant fir tree is its real body? Lin Yi was shocked. Even if his ability to accept things was extremely high, he could not help but shudder when he thought that his opponent was actually the giant fir tree under his feet. Unexpectedly, the ghostly thing denied. You're wrong, boy. There's more than a fir tree under your feet. What do you mean? Lin Yi was stunned. He looked at the bright half-moon lake below and could not help but gasp. No way. Senior, do you mean that even this half-moon lake is its real body? Chapter 39:15. It was no wonder that even the super vital energy bomb could not do anything to it. If the other party was such a terrifying spiritual beast, it was reasonable that it could ignore that level of super vital energy bomb. That's right. What you see under your feet is its original body. The ghost thing sighed. In terms of talent alone, this fellow is considered to be blessed by nature. Even in the entire spiritual beast world, there are only a handful of beings that can surpass it. However, its original body is destined to be powerful, but it also limits its movements. Otherwise, with this fellow's strength, it would be enough to occupy a place in the core of the back mountain. According to the ghost thing's evaluation, the few powerful spiritual beasts in the core of the back mountain were existences that could kill him with a glance. When he thought that he had indirectly fought with such existences, Lin Yi could not help but feel a chill down his spine. The mirror puppet at the beginning was fine, but the faceless puppet that appeared later had a part of the spirit attached to it. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was half a clone of the other party. If the ghost thing had not acted in time, Lin Yi would have been a corpse by now. Then, how does this fellow compare to you, senior? Lin Yi could not help but ask curiously. Compared to me? It's still far from being comparable to me. However, at its level, it can't be completely subdued by my coercion alone. After all, I'm only a spirit now. If we really fight, I may not be able to protect you. Once it notices this, it'll be bad. So, it's not good to stay here for long. It's better to leave as soon as possible. The ghost thing said seriously. Understood. Lin Yi did not say anything else. He adjusted his state of mind and prepared to leave. Just as the ghost thing said, although he seemed to have escaped, the reality was that he was still standing on the other party's original body. If the other party reacted, it could kill him at any time. Fortunately, the ghost thing had directly used its divine sense to shatter the other party's faceless puppet into powder. This move was enough to intimidate the other party for a while. The other party would not dare to act rashly in a short period of time, but this might not be long. Lin Yi carefully observed the huge black shadow in the half-moon lake. Although he already knew that the scarlet tentacle that attacked him before should be the vines of the half-moon lake monster under his feet, he could not ignore the existence of the huge black shadow. The half-moon lake monster beneath their feet was already terrifying enough. As for that unknown huge shadow, if that fellow was not a part of the half-moon lake monster's body, but another spirit beast, it would be able to coexist with the half-moon lake spirit beast. Its strength was definitely not weak. If he were to be attacked by both of them at the same time, even with the protection of the ghost, the chances of him escaping unscathed would be minuscule. He had to plan before he acted. However, just as Lin Yi was observing, a black shadow appeared on the other side of the lake. It looked like it couldn't hold itself back anymore, and it took the opportunity when the huge shadow at the bottom of the lake moved away to the other side to dash towards the tree Lin Yi was at. Lin Yi would be. Lin Yi was shocked. He subconsciously thought that it was Shangguan Laner. After all, he had stayed in the tree hole for a long time. It had been 3.5 hours. Shangguan Laner thought that there was an accident and acted rashly. This was not impossible. However, although the huge black shadow at the bottom of the lake had swum to the farthest end, if it thought that this was the best opportunity to cross the lake, it was simply courting death. According to Lin Yi's previous observation, this huge black shadow's activity pattern was that after swimming to the farthest end of the half-moon lake, it would quickly turn back 6 out of 10 times. Furthermore, its swimming speed was terrifyingly fast. This seemed to be an opportunity, but it was actually a fatal trap. If he really acted rashly and fell into the trap, what would happen next was simply unimaginable. Sure enough, when this person had only jumped halfway, the huge black shadow at the bottom of the lake had already turned back and suddenly floated up. Danger! A girl's voice sounded on the shore of the half-moon lake. This was the voice of Shangguan Laner. This person was not Shangguan Laner? Lin Yi was shocked, and then he found that the figure in the air was a little familiar. Moreover, it was a woman. At the same time that Shangguan Laner reminded him, this woman finally noticed the crisis below, and Lin Yi finally saw the true face of the spirit beast at the bottom of the lake for the first time. It was a giant octopus with thorny fangs all over its body. Rather than saying it was ugly, it was more accurate to say that it was horrifying. Just looking at its face was enough to make a practitioner like Lin Yi shudder with fear. This was the first time he'd seen something like this. Giant ugly octopus? This guy has raised a good watchdog. The ghostly thing sighed in Lin Yi's mind. While he was amazed, the familiar woman in front of Lin Yi, who acted rashly, had already fallen into a huge crisis trap. The giant ugly octopus, not to mention its huge size, was at least 10 times faster than Lin Yi. The two of them could not be compared at all. However, because of Shangguan Laner's warning in advance, the figure had already prepared in advance. This time was very little, but it was enough to be the last hope. The figure suddenly flashed in the air, and then turned into several residual shadows, directly turning to Shangguan Laner, who was on the shore of the half-moon lake. Phantom finger? Damn woman! It was not until this moment that Lin Yi finally confirmed the identity of this woman. Surprisingly, it was Morong Zhan, who had been sticking to Meng Jueguang recently. Phantom finger was not only a martial arts technique used to attack and kill people, but also a disguised martial arts technique of body movement. Its phantom characteristic could be used to deceive the enemy's divine sense, and it could also guarantee to appear next to the target in an instant. Although the effective distance was very short, the speed of this instant was unparalleled. Morong Zhan took advantage of this and managed to escape from death at the last moment when he was about to fall into the giant ugly octopus's bloody mouth. Without Shangguan Laner's warning, if she did not instantly lock Shanghai Laner as the target, Morong Zhan would not have had any possibility to escape. But now, not only did she successfully save her little life, but she also successfully involved the other party in a crisis. After she saw the face of Shanghai Laner clearly, she was really overjoyed. From the Soaring Sky Pavilion's highly regarded second-generation cultivator to the hopeless Clear Cloud Pavilion's newcomer, although Shangguan Laner was not the main culprit that brought Morong Zhan down to the ground, there was one thing without a doubt. She was the cause of all this. Chapter 39:16. Ever since she was sent to Blue Cloud Pavilion as a newcomer, everything Morong Zhan did was to deliberately accumulate her strength. In the end, she only had one goal, which was to take revenge on Shanghai Laner, the lady who had caused her to fall into the dust. Originally, due to the disparity between their statuses, under normal circumstances, the possibility of her succeeding in her revenge was close to zero. No matter how deep her resentment was, Morong Zhan was well aware of this fact. At the very least, she did not have any chance to take revenge right now. Perhaps after she worked hard for a few years, or even a few decades, there would be a glimmer of hope for the day when she could hold her head high. However, Morongjin never thought that this day would come so quickly and so suddenly. It was so sudden that she did not even have the time to react before the incident had already happened. Fortunately, her subconscious reaction in that instant had already perfectly achieved her goal of revenge. The displacement effect of Phantom Finger was just a side effect. In essence, it was a real killing technique. Shanghai Laner had never thought that not only would the other party not be grateful for her kind reminder, she would actually bring about such a fatal disaster. She had always heard her grandfather talk about how dangerous the martial world was, but today, she had truly learned a lesson. She deeply understood what it meant to have the heart of a snake and scorpion. Until now, she still did not know that the other party was Morongjin, whom she had met once. Of course, even if Morongjin introduced herself in front of her, she might not be able to remember. It was just like how she had ignored Morongjin's provocation in the past. With the disparity between their statuses, if Morongjin wanted to leave an impression on her, she would not have had any hope of doing something outrageous. However, this time, Shanghai Laner would definitely have a deep impression of her if she could escape this disaster alive. In terms of strength, Morongjin and Shangguan Laner were both at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. However, Shanghai Laner obviously lacked actual combat experience. At this moment, when faced with Morongjin's sudden phantom finger, she actually panicked. For a moment, she did not know what to do. Very good, that's the expression. Obediently die for me, superior Miss Shangguan. Morongjin's face was so ferocious that blue veins could be seen. At this time, she had completely forgotten about the threat of the ugly octopus. Nothing could make her more excited and vent her anger than killing Shanghai Laner. Moreover, this situation was simply tailor-made for her. The Half Moon Lake was recognized as one of the most dangerous places in the periphery of the back mountain. Even if Shangguan Laner died here, even if Shanghai Laner died here, no one would suspect her, a newcomer of Blue Cloud Pavilion. This time, even the heavens were on his side. With a single phantom finger, not only did he successfully escape from the fish's mouth, he even managed to reap the life of the Shangguan first mistress. Was there anything more wonderful than this in the world? Seeing Morongjin's phantom finger pointing at her throat, Shangguan Laner couldn't move at all. There was nothing that could stop her. However, she had been scared by her opponent's fierce offensive. At this time, Linny was still on the giant fir tree across the lake. Although the straight-line distance between them was not too far, there was an ugly octopus between them. If she counted on him to save her, it was obviously beyond his reach. The three people present, Lin Yi, Morongjin, and Shanghai Laner, did not expect that. At the last moment, the one who saved Shanghai Laner's life turned out to be a guy that no one paid attention to. It was a small curly bear that seemed to have no fighting power. In fact, the small curly bear did not do anything difficult. At the last moment, it just gently pushed Shanghai Laner. That was all. However, it was this gentle push that pulled its owner back from the brink of death. After all, Shanghai Laner was an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. As long as Morongjin's phantom finger did not hit a vital point like her throat, it would not be able to kill her. Feeling the sharp pain on her shoulder, Shanghai Laner finally recovered from the fear of death. She hurriedly ran for her life with the small curly bear. She could not remember her opponent's identity. She only knew that she was no match for him. If she continued to stay where she was, she would probably be killed before Lin Yi could come to her rescue. Seeing that her phantom finger had failed, Morongjin could not help but grit her teeth in hatred. The reason why she came here today was actually the same as Shanghai Laner. She wanted to try her luck and see if she could get a 1,000-year tree crystal. But now, she had long thrown the 1,000-year tree crystal to the back of her mind. If she still couldn't kill Shangguan Laner with such a heaven-sent opportunity, then it would be very difficult for her to have such a good opportunity in her life. She couldn't let it go, and it wouldn't come again. Shanghai Laner, today is the day you die. This will be your burial ground. No one can save you. Morongjin grinned hideously and chased after her. Shanghai Laner was at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm, but she did not have the corresponding combat experience. She was no match for Morongjin at all. Moreover, she still had to carry the small curly bear. Even if she wanted to run, she could not run fast. Let's see who can save you this time. Morongjian used her phantom finger again and instantly appeared behind Shanghai Laner's head. The small curly bear that caused her phantom finger to fail was already sent flying by her palm. This time, there was nothing that could interfere with her phantom finger. Shangguan Laner, the lady who made her fall into the dust, was definitely going to die. When Morongjian attacked with her finger, she was filled with joy and thought that she had succeeded. However, she was shocked to find that a familiar figure had appeared beside her. Her phantom finger, which was supposed to pierce through Shanghai Laner's vital parts, was caught by a single hand and could not move at all. When she saw the person's face clearly, Morongjian's eyes instantly narrowed. She cried out in horror, "Linny!" The visibility at night was low. Even the fluorescent light from the half-moon lake could not change much. Moreover, her attention was completely focused on the ugly octopus and Shanghai Laner. It was normal that she did not notice Lin Yi's existence. If she had known that Lin Yi was here in advance, she might not have had the courage to directly attack Shanghai Laner. Not to mention whether Lin Yi would harm her or not. She would definitely be dead if the news of her assassination of Lady Shangguan was spread out. There was no possibility of her surviving. It seems that during the newcomer challenge, I really shouldn't have let you go. If I had killed you directly, the world would be slightly cleaner. Lin Yi held Morongjian's phantom finger with one hand, and his killing intent was faintly discernible. Before fighting with the mirror puppet, Morongjian's phantom finger might have been a threat to him. But now, with just simple martial arts, Lin Yi could completely defeat his opponent. Chapter 39:17. Morongjian was instantly horrified. She was no match for Lin Yi in a one-on-one battle. There was no doubt about that. However, her attempt to kill Shanghai Laner had been caught red-handed by Lin Yi. The situation took a sudden turn for the worse. The shadow of death that had been hanging over Shanghai Laner's head had quietly shifted to her own head. Cold sweat dripped from Morongjian's forehead. Time seemed to have frozen at that moment. It was so slow that it made one's hair stand on end. It made one anxious and even terrified. Finally, while Morongjian was still in a state of shock, Lin Yi slowly spoke again. "If you don't have any last words, I'll send you on your way." There was no deep hatred between him and Morongjian. Hence, during the last newcomer challenge, he did not intend to kill her. However, today, after witnessing what Morongjian had done to Shanghai Laner, his hidden killing intent had been triggered. Morongjian and Shangguan Laner had a grudge against each other. Shanghai Laner did not remember, so Lin Yi naturally did not know either. However, based on the woman's vicious act of biting the hand that fed her, she deserved to die. Scum like her did not deserve to live in this world. Wait. Morongjian cried out in panic when she saw that Lin Yi was about to make his move. She was no longer Lin Yi's opponent during the newcomer challenge. Now, Lin Yi seemed to have improved a lot. Furthermore, she was currently being grabbed by him. If they were to fight, she would definitely lose. Amidst her fear, Morongjian's gaze swept between Lin Yi and Shanghai Laner. Before Lin Yi could make his move, she asked, What's your relationship with her?" Lady Shangguan hated Lin Yi, and this was a well-known fact in the Welcome Pavilion. Naturally, it was not difficult for Morongjian to know, so she thought that Lin Yi would be her natural ally. That was why she tried every possible way to win Lin Yi over. However, she had never expected that Lin Yi would actually want to kill her for the sake of that bitch, Shangguan Laner. "These are your last words? I'm sorry. I am not obliged to answer you. So be it." After Lin Yi finished speaking, a tremendous amount of vital qi gathered on his right palm. Morongjian's arm was grabbed by Lin Yi's left hand. Even if he used martial arts techniques like the phantom finger, he would not be able to escape from Lin Yi's next palm strike. Although Morongjian could sense that Lin Yi's entire body was filled with openings, her instincts told her that she would be the one who would die in the end if she really thought that they were openings and attacked recklessly. What to do? He would really die if he continued like this. She could only watch as Lin Yi's murderous intent became more and more intense. Morongjian was so anxious that she was sweating profusely. No matter how cunning she was, when it came to a life-threatening situation like this, her mind would turn blank. They were too close to each other. Even if she were to break one of her arms and abandon her right arm that was grabbed by Lin Yi, she would not be able to escape Lin Yi's next palm strike. She would still die. She was helpless and could only wait for her death. Faced with Lin Yi's merciless palm strike, Morongjian felt defeated. She was unwilling to let her best years come to an end just like that. She was extremely unwilling. However, the palm strike suddenly stopped midway. It was not because Lin Yi was soft-hearted, but because Shangguan Laner had spoken. Little junior brother, let her go. Shangguan Laner covered the wound on her shoulder with one hand and comforted the little curly bear, which was dizzy from Morongjian's palm strike. She gasped in pain as she spoke. It was a sentence. Lin Yi and Morongjian were shocked at the same time. Both of them were a little stunned. She was determined to kill you just now. You don't think she was joking, do you? Lin Yi frowned as he spoke. At any time, showing mercy to the enemy was being cruel to oneself. There were countless examples of being soft-hearted that led to a painful lesson. Even if Shangguan Laner was a young miss, even if she didn't have much experience in the Jianghu, Lin Yi didn't believe that she didn't know such a simple truth. Even if she didn't know, her grandfather Shangguan Tianhua would definitely let her know. I know. If little junior brother didn't come back in time, I'd be dead by now. Shangguan Laner nodded in all seriousness. Then you still want to let her go? If you don't kill her this time, she'll still find a chance to kill you next time. Lin Yi rolled his eyes speechlessly. The human heart was sinister. Even if he let her go this time, a sinister woman like Morongjian would only become worse. If he thought that she would turn over a new leaf, he could only say that this little senior sister of his was too naive. Unexpectedly, Shangguan Laner was still stubborn as she said, "It's all right, but I still don't want her to die because of me. So, little junior brother, let me be stubborn for once. Please let her go this time." After listening to what she said, not only was Lin Yi stunned, but even Morongjian herself was in disbelief. To her knowledge, this kind of thing was simply ridiculous and childish to the point that it was difficult to understand. If it was not because of their current situation, she would have mocked her already. Looking at Shangguan Laner's serious expression at the moment, it was not that she did not understand the principle of Jianghu being sinister. However, even so, she still wanted to continue doing such a naive and ridiculous thing. Even if she had to bear the huge risk of being devoured by others in the future, she did not care. Chapter 39:18. Lin Yi glanced at her indifferently and said, "I'm just teaching you a lesson. Although I've spared your life this time, I advise you to think about your own strength if you want to play any tricks in the future. If I want to kill you, it'll be as easy as blowing off dust." You. Morongjian was instantly furious, but when she thought of his strength, she could only swallow her anger and said, "Okay, I've learned my lesson." Originally, she wanted to take the opportunity to pretend to be repentant and turn over a new leaf. According to Shanghai Laner's naive and childish personality, she might have a chance to get closer to her so that she could find an opportunity to kill her in the future. However, now that she had been slapped by Lin Yi, she immediately gave up the idea. Although Shanghai Laner was childish and ridiculous, Lin Yi was not necessarily the same. If she continued to play tricks here at this time, she might really be slapped to death by Lin Yi. If that happened, she would not be able to find a grave even if she cried. Looking at Morongjian's fleeing figure, Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh. He said to Shangguan Laner, "This woman's heart is as vicious as a snake and scorpion. I really don't know if what she did today was right or wrong. In the future, you must be careful." "Yes, I know." Shanghai Laner nodded obediently. Then, she suddenly reacted and said with her teeth and claws, "I'm your little senior sister. Even you know something, how can I, as your senior sister, not know? Little junior brother, what do you mean by that? Are you looking down on me?" "Ah, I don't dare. Lin Yi suddenly felt embarrassed. This girl really changed her face at a moment's notice. That's more like it. Ouch. Shanghai Laner raised her fist proudly, but because of the injury on her shoulder, she was in so much pain that she even shed tears. Because her attention was focused on Morongzhan just now, she did not notice the injury on her shoulder. But now, not only was the injury shocking, but the bursts of pain from it made her scalp numb. Shangguan Laner was not an ordinary lady. After all, she was an expert at the peak of the early stage of the building foundation realm, so a normal injury would not be a problem for her. However, her wound was caused by Morongzhan's phantom finger. After her shoulder was hit, not only did it move like it was mincing her flesh, but there were also sharp barbs on her finger, which was extremely insidious. Even an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm might not be able to endure this kind of pain, let alone Shangguan Laner, this pampered and spoiled young lady. Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. He hurriedly went forward to examine her injury and found that the wound was deep enough to see the bone. Fortunately, there were no signs of poisoning. Let's go. Let's find a hidden place. I'll help you heal. Lin Yi picked up the dizzy little curly bear and immediately left with Shanghai Laner. After all, this place was not far from the Half Moon Lake. If he stayed here for too long, he could not guarantee that the terrifying existence that even the ghost thing was somewhat afraid of. Would it suddenly attack him? Even if its body couldn't move, if it used its vine whip or a puppet, it might be able to attack him. He found a hole in a tree. Lin Yi then began to heal Shanghai Laner. With the ability of the art of dragon mastery, it was a piece of cake to heal the injury on her shoulder. However, the process was still extremely painful. To prevent the young lady from screaming in pain and causing unnecessary trouble, Lin Yi had to think of a way to divert her attention. The only thing he could do was to find a topic to divert her attention. Little senior sister, I'm sure you understand the principle of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. You had such a good opportunity just now. Why did you let Morongzhan go? Lin Yi asked. This question was not purely to divert her attention. Lin Yi was indeed curious. It was reasonable for a young lady like Shangguan Laner, who had never seen blood, to not dare to kill people. However, in the situation just now, Morongzhan had repaid her kindness with ingratitude, and she knew what the consequences would be if she let him go. She did not even need to do it herself. If it were any normal person, they would not be soft-hearted. Huh, she's called Morongzhan. Little junior brother, do you know her? Shanghai Laner was surprised. She even forgot the pain on her shoulder. She's a newcomer who joined Blue Cloud Pavilion halfway. Before that, she seemed to be a relative of one of the elders in Soaring Sky Pavilion, Lin Yi explained. Shanghai Laner was stunned. After a while, she reacted with an "oh" sound. I know why she wanted to kill me. She's the woman I met in Huayang residence, but I only met her once. There shouldn't be any enmity between us. She scolded me for being uneducated, but I didn't even talk back. So that's how it is. Lin Yi understood. The reason why Morongzhan was sent to Blue Cloud Pavilion as a newcomer was probably because she offended Shanghai Laner. After all, if Shanghai Laner did not mind, the others would do it for her in order to please her. Otherwise, no matter how evil Morongzhan was, she would not bite the hand that fed her to the point of killing this young lady. For a woman like her, it's probably because you didn't take her seriously that she hates you even more. In the end, it's all because of her jealousy. You let her go this time out of kindness, but I'm sure she will continue to look for opportunities to attack you in the future. Lin Yi shook his head. From his point of view, no matter how he looked at it, Shanghai Laner's decision was playing with fire. She might get herself into trouble at any time. But I still don't want to kill her. Not only her, but I don't want other people, spiritual beasts, and all living things to die because of me. Shanghai Laner paused. Her eyes were clear, because I want to be merciful. Merciful? Lin Yi was stunned. It was the first time he had heard of this term. It did not sound like it was part of normal cultivation. Grandpa said that as long as you are a merciful person, you can change your fate, so your great wish will definitely come true. So I must be merciful, Shangguan Laner said seriously, which she had never done before. Then, What is your great wish? Lin Yi asked curiously. Shanghai Laner smiled charmingly. Of course, it's to bring my father back safe and sound. Your father? What's wrong with him? Lin Yi was astonished. He had been here for quite some time now. He was very familiar with important people like the Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master, Shanghai Tianhua. However, he had never heard anything about Shangguan Laner's father, the only son of Shanghai Tianhua. It was as if this person did not even exist. Logically speaking, with a powerful backer like Shangguan Tianhua, no matter how poor his cultivation talent was, he should have been able to do very well in the three great pavilions. He should have been able to make a name for himself. Chapter 39:19. According to normal logic, if Lin Yi were to move around the back mountain with a ghost-eyed golden eagle cub, not only would he be greatly slowed down, he would be easily targeted by other people and spirit beasts, and it was very likely that he would be discovered by the ghost-eyed golden eagle in the sky. The consequences would be unimaginable. However, what made Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai even more helpless was that the periphery of the back mountain was as vast as the sea. The key point was that they did not have the time to make an agreement with Lin Yi beforehand. If the two of them wanted to find Lin Yi, it would be like finding a needle in a haystack. It was easier said than done. Fortunately, the two of them were not stupid enough to only look for Lin Yi. Other than collecting the treasures that they encountered along the way, Xiao Ran also had to pay attention to the various spirit beasts that they encountered. Although Xiao Hongsai's spirit pet had been found, his spirit pet talisman was still in his hands. With Xiao Hongsai's ghost-eyed golden eagle cub in front of him, Xiao Ran's vision naturally could not be too low. Not only did he need to have strength, he also needed to have potential. Therefore, it was difficult for ordinary spirit beasts to catch his eye. Although there were as many spirit beasts in the back mountain as there were hairs on a cow, it was actually not easy to find one that fulfilled both conditions. Moreover, it had to be within the range of the low-level spirit pet talisman. Unless Xiao Ran was like Xiao Honkai and specifically targeted the cub of some powerful spirit beasts, he would be able to meet these requirements. However, the risk involved was something that Xiao Ran could not afford with his current strength. Fortunately, Xiao Ran had always been calm and would not be too eager for quick success. Even if he did not find a suitable spirit beast for the time being, he was still not anxious or impatient. Sometimes it must be fated, but if it is not fated, one should not force it. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai wandered around the periphery of the back mountain just like that. However, unexpectedly, they did not encounter Lin Yi. Instead, they encountered their archenemy, Meng Tong and his gang. At this moment, the group of newcomers led by Meng Tong was on high alert. Especially Meng Tong. He was so nervous that he was drenched in cold sweat and did not dare to breathe. There was no other reason. Meng Tong was trying to tame a spirit beast. This was the perfect target that he had forced his group to spend a whole 10 days to find for him. Black-backed ape was one of the few spirit beasts that was born with the ability to use weapons. Its strength could reach the early stage of foundation establishment stage. The one that Meng Tong was targeted was a quasi-adult that had just left the protection of its parents. Its strength was at the peak late stage of heaven. For Meng Tong, this black-backed stick ape was simply a pie that fell from the sky. He was afraid that there was no other spiritual pet in the world that was more suitable for him. There was only one problem at hand. Could the low-level spiritual pet talisman in his hands be able to tame this black-backed stick ape? Li Zhengming stood at the top of a tree and watched coldly. Under Meng Tong's lead, the black-backed ape had been surrounded by his group. There was no way for it to escape. Moreover, it was heavily injured and did not have the ferocity it had at the beginning. With just a low-level spirit beast charm, the success rate of taming a peak late-stage heaven stage spirit beast was not high. However, if this black-backed ape had already lost its will to resist, there was a high chance that Meng Tong would succeed. Meng Tong had already started to tame it. Normally, if there were no accidents, the result would be out in the time it took to burn a stick of incense. Observing all of this, Li Zhengming could not help but feel anxious. There was no need to doubt the strength of the black-back rod ape. If it was equipped with a good rod-type weapon, it would be a piece of cake for it to defeat all spirit beasts of the same level. If Meng Tong could successfully tame it this time, he would be able to secure the first place in this round of the Spirit Beast assessment with just this black-backed ape that was at the peak late-stage heaven stage. There was no doubt about it. Of course, Li Zhengming did not want him to succeed so easily. However, there were too many people here. If he tried to sabotage it secretly, it would be easy for him to expose himself. As a key spy that Lin Yi had placed under Meng Jueguang, it would not be worth it if he exposed himself for such a small matter. However, if this continued and he was successfully tamed by Meng Tong, even Lin Yi might not be able to deal with him during the battle of the spirit beasts. After all, it was the spirit beasts that were going to battle. No matter how strong Lin Yi was, it would be useless. Just as Li Jingming was stuck between a rock and a hard place, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai happened to pass by. In reality, according to the original route, the two of them would not encounter Meng Tong's group. Under normal circumstances, they would only pass by. However, now that Li Zhengming was standing on the top of the tree, the situation was different. Looking down from above, a fruit that could be seen everywhere suddenly fell towards the two of them. This really shocked Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai. Their attention was immediately drawn over. As for Li Zhengming, the instigator, he pretended not to notice the two of them. He continued to stand on the top of the tree as if nothing had happened, carrying out the lookout task that Meng Tong had imposed on him. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai were early-stage foundation building experts after all. Under normal circumstances, they might not be able to detect Meng Tong's group. However, with Li Zhengming's hint, they could detect Meng Tong's group in an instant. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Newcomer Ming, you happen to be taming a pet with intelligence. Do you want me to help you? Xiao Hongkai sneered and rolled up her sleeves, rushing over. On the other side were a dozen people led by Meng Tong, but he charged forward without any scruples, not taking them seriously at all. Xiao Ran followed closely behind, but he gave Li Jingming a meaningful look. Xiao Hongkai might not be able to tell who the fruit belonged to, but it couldn't be hidden from Xiao Ran's eyes. What was Li Zhengming's intention to use the fruit to lure the two of them here? Xiao Ran could not help but feel puzzled. If Murong Zhan was here, he could understand it as luring the snake into the trap. After all, with the strength of Murong Zhan and Meng Tong's group, it was more than enough to deal with him and Xiao Hongkai. However, there was no sign of Murong Zhan at all. Wouldn't he be making things difficult for Meng Tong by luring the two of them here? While Xiao Ran was hesitating, Xiao Hongkai had already rushed in front of Meng Tong's group. Meng Tong immediately panicked and shouted at the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers, "Hurry up and stop her. You'll be rewarded handsomely after this." It was a crucial moment for him to tame the blackback ape. He was about to succeed. If he was interrupted by Xiao Hongkai, then all his efforts would be in vain. Even the spiritual pet talisman he had used would be wasted. However, Xiao Hongcai's strength was already obvious during the newcomer challenge competition. Even Meng Tong, an early-stage foundation establishment expert, was beaten half to death by her. The Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers present were only at the heaven stage great perfection. How could they dare to fight to the death with such a hothead? Chapter 39:20. Without waiting for Lin Yi to open his mouth to comfort her, she quickly recovered on her own and said energetically, "So I must be merciful and pray for Daddy to return safely." Grandpa said it himself, it's not a lie. Seeing Shanghai Laner's confident look, Lin Yi could not help but be silent. Although he was a cultivator, things like luck were illusory. With his current level, not only could he not come into contact with it, he could not even imagine it. However, temporarily not being able to come into contact with it did not mean that it did not exist. The so-called merciful might be a white lie that Shanghai Tianhua purposely made up to comfort his granddaughter, but the possibility that it really existed could not be ruled out either. This was because above the heavenly axiom, it was not only about cultivating the body, but also cultivating to become an immortal. Whether this was true or not, only Lin Yi himself had reached that level and personally experienced it to know. After half an hour, Shanghai Laner's injuries had already recovered to their original state. Looking at the new white skin on her shoulder, She could not help but be surprised and happy. There are no scars at all, and the skin is even better than before. Little junior brother, you're really amazing. After a pause, Shanghai Laner's eyeballs rolled, and she smiled and said fawningly, "How about, little junior brother? You help me heal the other places too? You have to be injured like just now, then you can be reborn after being injured. Aren't you afraid of pain?" Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry. Indeed, everyone loved beauty. Even this naive big sister was no exception. Don't be afraid, little junior brother. You don't understand women. You have to know that women are very incredible creatures. Compared to beautiful white skin, this little bit of pain is nothing. Shanghai Laner had a righteous expression on her face. Then when there's a chance in the future, the back of the mountain is full of danger. If you expend too much true chi, it's easy to get into danger. Lin Yi could only say perfunctorily, speechless. If that's the case, all right then, it's a deal. You can't go back on your words when you go back. Come on, let's pinky swear. Shangguan Laner immediately grabbed Lin Yi's hand. After making the pinky swear, she did not forget to stamp it. Lin Yi helplessly shook his head and could only let her do as she pleased. He then took out a dark green crystal and handed it to her, saying, "This is a 1,000-year tree crystal. Keep it first." Wow! Shangguan Laner took the 1,000-year tree crystal and stared at it with wide eyes. Although she had come for the 1,000-year tree crystal this time, even she herself did not have much hope. After all, the danger level of the half-moon lake was second to none in the outskirts of the back of the mountain. She had witnessed the thrilling situation when Lin Yi crossed the lake previously, and it was not easy for Lin Yi to escape unscathed this time. Shanghai Laner even regretted letting Lin Yi do this. As for the 1,000-year tree crystal, she had already given up on it, because it was something that could only be found by chance. Even if Lin Yi successfully reached the giant fir tree in the center of the lake, the possibility of finding the 1,000-year tree crystal was extremely low. Especially after the unexpected crisis of Morongzhan, Shanghai Laner had completely forgotten about the 1,000-year tree crystal. She did not expect that Lin Yi would actually get it. It's so beautiful. Shanghai Laner held the 1,000-year tree crystal carefully. Her eyes were shining, and her drooling look made Lin Yi feel disgusted. It must be said that the 1,000-year tree crystal was indeed impeccable in terms of appearance. This kind of crystal-clear treasure with a mysterious aura of life was not something inanimate objects like spirit jade could compare to. It was fatally attractive to women, and Shanghai Laner was no exception. Compared to the 1,000-year tree crystal lying in Lin Yi's jade pendant space, it was far above the 1,000-year tree crystal in terms of value and function. However, its appearance was really unflattering. At first glance, it looked like a piece of charred rotten wood. After a long time, Shanghai Laner finally reluctantly put the 1,000-year tree crystal into her pouch. At the same time, she turned around and secretly took out a handkerchief to wipe the saliva at the corner of her mouth. Then, this big sister put on the dignified posture of a senior sister with a straight face and pretended to be solemn as she said, "Little junior brother, with our friendship, I won't say thanks to you. I'll remember it all in my heart, and I'll definitely repay you in the future." "Little senior sister, you're exaggerating. This is what I should do." Lin Yi could not help laughing, but he still put on a very cooperative face. Unexpectedly, Shangguan Laner suddenly stretched out her hand and slapped him on the forehead. She said resentfully, "What should I do? Making this senior sister owe you a favor is equivalent to making my grandfather owe you a favor. I don't need to explain how precious a favor from the dignified soaring sky pavilion's pavilion master is. Even in their dreams, they would want him to owe them a favor. Little junior brother, you are really stupid. Was that even possible?" Lin Yi could not help but be stunned. Looking at Shanghai Laner winking at him, he was suddenly speechless. Was this girl trying to trick her own grandfather? However, for Lin Yi, earning a favor from Shanghai Tianhua would definitely benefit him endlessly in the three great pavilions in the future. With Shanghai Tianhua's influence, even the higher-ups of Blue Cloud Pavilion would not dare to ignore him. This big sister, Shanghai Laner, had always been naive, but she was sly and cunning at times like this. Although Linny did not know whether to laugh or cry at her reasoning, he was still secretly excited. This so-called favor, regardless of whether he would use it in the future, was still Shanghai Laner's kind intentions, and he could not let her down. Now that the 1,000-year tree crystal is in our hands, little senior sister, what do you plan to do next? Linny asked. Shanghai Laner frowned and thought for a while, then patted her head and said, "It's rare for me to come to the back mountain, and it's with you, little junior brother. It's too much of a waste to go back like this. Don't you guys still have the newcomer assessment mission? I'll follow you here and have some fun. Who knows, I might even find some other forging materials." That's fine. Linny nodded. He had originally planned to use the remaining time to wander around the back mountain. As long as he did not go to a particularly dangerous place like Half Moon Lake, bringing Shanghai Laner with him would not be a problem. 1,000-year tree crystal and 1,000-year tree crystal. Even if he could not find the heart-devouring exquisite grass that he wanted the most in the next few days, this trip to the back mountain was already a great profit for Lin Yi. However, while Linny was relaxed and happy, his two underlings, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, had been worrying so much about him these days that their hair had turned white. From the first day they were forced to separate from Lin Yi, the two of them had been looking for Lin Yi. It was not only because Xiao Hongcai's ghost-eyed golden eagle hatchlings were with him, but more importantly, they were worried about Lin Yi's safety. Chapter 39:21. In just one exchange, Xiao Hongkai had easily broken through the Blue Cloud Pavilion rookie's defenses and arrived in front of Meng Tong. A bunch of trash. Meng Tong gritted his teeth in anger. Helpless, he had no choice but to personally attack. Thankfully, the spirit pet charm had already been pasted on the black-backed stick ape's forehead. All he needed to do was think of a way to stop Xiao Hongkai and prevent him from affecting the black-backed stick ape. The 1,000 kicks and cold iron palm clashed head-on, and it was difficult to determine who was superior. Although he had lost to Xiao Hongkai in the rookie challenge, strictly speaking, Meng Tong's strength was not much weaker than Xiao Hongcai's. If he only wanted to hold back Xiao Hongkai for a moment, it would be a piece of cake for him. You useless trash. Instead of taking the path to heaven, you insist on barging into hell. Today will be the day you die, Meng Tong said with a ferocious look. However, Xiao Hongkai curled his lips with a sinister smile. Rookie Meng, are you sure this is okay? You don't need to look after your spirit pet? Let me remind you out of goodwill that I'm not alone this time. Meng Tong was immediately alarmed. He had been so anxious by Xiao Hongcai's provocative charge that he had nearly forgotten that there was still Xiao Ran. He hurriedly shouted, "Quick, stop Xiao Ran. If anyone dares to do it half-heartedly, it will be a betrayal. When we return, Ninth Cousin will personally deal with him." Betraying and defecting to the enemy. This threat was much more effective than the generous reward. The rookies might not believe the generous reward that Meng Tong mentioned, but the threat was real. If they were slandered by Meng Tong as betraying and defecting to the enemy, Meng Jueguang would definitely not let them off. Now that Meng Jueguang was about to be promoted to 3rd Pavilion Master, the news had already spread. At his peak, they did not dare to offend Meng Jueguang. After all, they were all experts at the Heaven Realm, and there were many of them. Once the rookies got serious, their combined strength could not be underestimated. If it were Xiao Hongkai, who was only good at head-on combat, she might not be their match. Unfortunately, they were not facing Xiao Hongkai, but Xiao Ran. Shadow Step. If it was a matter of dodging and maneuvering within a small area, no one in the world could surpass him. With Xiao Ran's fighting style, as long as his own strength wasn't weaker than his opponent's, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage even if his opponents outnumbered him. Furthermore, his current strength was above everyone else. The Shadow Step was as swift as a deity, and it didn't even take a single breath of time. Xiao Ran had successfully penetrated the encirclement of the rookies. He strolled leisurely without a speck of dust on him. When everyone came back to their senses, Xiao Ran was already standing beside the black-backed stick ape. He looked so relaxed and happy that it was a complete mess. Meng Tong immediately noticed this when he heard the exclamations of surprise from the crowd, and he roared furiously with his eyes wide open. Xiao Ran, if you dare touch a single hair on it, I'll tear you into pieces. Chop him into pieces? Then come and try to kill me. Xiao Ran chuckled and raised his eyebrows. He then waved his hand. He tore off the spirit pet talisman that was stuck on the black-backed rod ape's forehead. With that, the black-backed rod ape quickly woke up from the trance of the divine sense hypnosis. Everything that Meng Tong had put in so much effort to do was in vain. He could only stare blankly at this scene. Meng Tong almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He had used Meng Jueguang's name to force so many people to find the black-backed rod ape. It took him so many days of effort before he finally found it. Now, he was about to succeed. He never expected that Xiao Ran would destroy it so easily. Not only did he want to kill, Meng Tong even wanted to bite someone. I'll kill you. Meng Tong's eyes were bloodshot. He immediately chased after Xiao Ran like a madman. However, he had forgotten that there was a powerful opponent standing behind him. Bang! A cold iron palm hit Meng Tong's back and sent him flying 100 feet away, leaving a bloody arc. At the same time, Xiao Honkai sneered, "How dare you ignore my existence and show your back to me? I really don't know where your courage and boldness comes from." Xiao Honkai did not hold back in this cold iron palm. Meng Tong was caught off guard and did not have any defense. He took all the damage. Not only did he spit out a mouthful of blood, he probably only had 20 to 30% of his strength left. Well done. Li Zhengming, who was among the newcomers, saw everything and could not help but praise them in his heart. Even with his picky eyes, he had to admit that both Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai had their own unique points. They were far from being comparable to an idiot like Meng Tong. The potential that the two of them gradually displayed was not inferior to Li Zhengming's. Lin was able to recruit two extraordinary subordinates the moment he arrived at Heavenly Island. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was blessed. Not only did Meng Tong fail at the last step, if Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were a little more ruthless, he might even lose his life here. To Li Zhengming, this was a good thing. The truth was indeed as Li Zhengming expected. After Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai severely injured Meng Tong, they did not have the intention to stop. Instead, they joined hands and walked towards Meng Tong. Sensing the faintly discernible killing intent from the duo, the other rookies present immediately scattered. After all, they were only subordinates of Meng Jueguang. Meng Tong's life or death had nothing to do with them. On the contrary, if Meng Tong, who was Meng Jueguang's favorite, were to die, it would be a good thing for them. Furthermore, Meng Tong had always bullied them. So at this moment, no one was foolish enough to stand up against Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai for Meng Tong. To them, the most important thing was to escape as far away as possible to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Seeing the rookies scatter in all directions without any sense of loyalty, Meng Tong, who was already heavily injured, immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood. He clenched his fists in indignation. Damn it! This bunch of King bastards. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai looked each other in the eye. Their eyes were filled with sharp killing intent. Although they were not people who killed, they would not show mercy at such a moment. Meng Tong and them, after the accumulation of all sorts of conflicts, had long become mortal enemies. Just like at the beginning of the rookie challenge, Meng Tong had thought of ways to get rid of the two of them. Naturally, the two of them had the same thoughts. Getting rid of Meng Tong was equivalent to cutting off one of Meng Jueguang's arms. This had an extremely important effect on Meng Jueguang, who was about to be promoted to the position of third pavilion lord. Chapter 39-22. Seeing that Xiao Ran and Murong Hongfei were getting closer, Meng Tong instantly felt as if he was being shrouded by the shadow of death. His entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. The bone-chilling, boundless fear caused his mind to go blank. Just then, Li Zhengming's voice suddenly rang out from above. "Lady Murong, over here." Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were both shocked. The rustling from the dense forest in the north was getting closer and closer. It was proof that someone was approaching them quickly. Li Zhengming was not bluffing. "What should we do?" Xiao Honkai turned to look at Xiao Ran, allowing him to make the decision. Although Ming Tong had been severely injured by his palm, he was not completely defenseless. Besides, no one knew what kind of power a person could unleash when they were forced into a corner. If the two of them stayed, they had absolute confidence that they could kill Ming Tong. However, if they were to waste any more time, they might invite a fatal disaster upon themselves. This was because Morong Zhan's power had long been proven to be far above theirs. Let's go. Xiao Ran made up his mind. He wanted to use this great opportunity to get rid of Ming Tong as well. However, it was clearly not worth it if he and Xiao Honkai were to be put in danger. Even if they had Ming Tong as a scapegoat, it would still be a loss if they lost either one of them. After all, they had the power. If they had the chance in the future, it would not be difficult to get rid of Ming Tong. There was no need for them to take the risk. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai quickly retreated. A moment later, Murong Zhan emerged from the dense forest with a thick, murderous aura. Xiao Ran's decision was very wise. Murong Zhan had just suffered a great loss in Lin Yi's hands and had almost lost her life. She was now burning with rage. If she were to bump into them now, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai would definitely die. This was because this woman would definitely vent all her anger on them, regardless of the cost. Disregarding the consequences, he wanted to get rid of these two people as soon as possible. Seeing the two of them quickly retreat, Li Jingming sighed in admiration. Resolute in advancing and retreating, this Xiao Ran is really not an ordinary person. At first glance, his reminders seemed to be guiding Murong Zhan in the right direction, but in reality, there was no need for him to say anything at all. With Murong Zhan's senses, he had long since sensed that something was wrong here. His true intention was to inform Xiao Ran and Xiao Luo. From Li Jingming's point of view, he did not care about the life and death of Xiao Ran and his companion. However, he cared about Lin Yi's opinion of him. If he had done nothing today and allowed Xiao Ran and Murong Zhan to encounter each other, Lin Yi would definitely blame him no matter what the outcome would be. However, if he had warned Xiao Ran and Xiao Luo insisted on staying to kill Ming Tong, it would not be his responsibility. Even if he were to watch the two of them being killed by Murong Zhan right in front of his eyes, Lin Yi would not say anything, because he had already done what he had to do. At that moment, under the tree, Murong Zhan looked at Ming Tong in disgust and said disdainfully, "You can't even handle two small fries. You're really useless. I really don't know why Ming Jueguang would value someone like you." What did you say? Ming Tong's pale face turned red when he heard what she said. Ever since Murong Zhan had arrived at the welcome pavilion, Ming Tong had been drooling over her even though he had never taken advantage of her. Due to Murong Zhan's constant flirting and seduction, Ming Tong was infatuated with her. However, he never thought that his goddess would. She did not even bother to hide her disdain. Normally, even if she did not like Ming Tong's embarrassing look, Murong Zhan would never say something like that. However, the incident at the Half-Moon Lake had made her gnash her teeth in hatred. Now that she was in a bad mood, she was not in the mood to play around with a useless person like Ming Tong. "I said you're useless. What's wrong? Do you have a problem with that?" Murong Zhan's eyes flashed with a bone-chilling murderous intent. Ming Tong suddenly shuddered. Only then did he wake up. The person in front of him was not like those ordinary yes-man rookies. If he made her unhappy, he would not be able to explain himself even if he was killed. "Li Jingming, get over here." Ming Tong did not dare to look Murong Zhan in the eye anymore. He could only vent his anger on the soft persimmon in his eyes. Li Jingming squinted. If Murong Zhan was not there, he would have killed the arrogant idiot, Ming Tong, a long time ago. After a pause, Li Jingming walked over slowly and said calmly, "What is it? Give me your spiritual pet talisman." Although Ming Tong was severely injured, he was still arrogant. He spoke like he was the boss. "Why should I?" The murderous intent in Li Jingming's eyes disappeared. Although it was only a low-grade spiritual pet talisman, to any new disciple of Clear Cloud Pavilion, this was an opportunity that could only be encountered by chance, and he, Li Jingming, was no exception. How could he possibly give it to this bastard Ming Tong? "It's because my spiritual pet talisman is useless. It's because I'm your boss. Do you have a problem with that?" Meng Tong smirked proudly. Xiao Ran had only removed the spiritual pet talisman he had stuck on the blackback stick ape's forehead. At this moment, the blackback stick ape, which had been severely injured by them, was still in the same place and had not escaped. With its current condition, it was guaranteed that it would succeed with another spiritual pet talisman. Li Zhengming could not help but take a deep breath when he heard that. He glanced at Murongzhan, who was next to him. However, Murongzhan did not seem to be interested. She merely crossed her arms and watched coldly. "Damn it! If it weren't for this woman, I would have killed you today." Li Zhengming took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in him. He said, "There's only one spiritual pet talisman. If I give it to you, what will happen to me?" "You?" Meng Tong raised his eyebrows and said sarcastically, "Do you have a brain? It's not like you're the only one with a spiritual pet talisman. Why don't you just snatch it from someone else? These people are cowards who are afraid of death anyway. It shouldn't be a problem for you with your strength." Snatch it from other newcomers? Li Zhengming was so angry that he almost laughed. Meng Tong was really stubborn. He wanted to make Li Zhengming a scapegoat no matter what. That was true. With Li Zhengming's strength, it was not difficult for him to snatch a spiritual pet talisman from other newcomers. However, if he really dared to do so, Meng Jueguang would definitely settle the score with him. That was because the newcomer's loyalty was not high. If he were to do so, he would be blatantly pushing them to Lin Yi. It would be strange if Meng Jueguang would let him off easily. Chapter 39-23. Li Jingming was alarmed. He thought that the rascal had discovered a flaw, so he immediately said in a deep voice, "You can't speak nonsense. What evidence do you have?" Meng Tong laughed out loud and said smugly, "There's no need for evidence. I just need to tell ninth cousin. Do you think he will believe me, or you?" Li Zhengming couldn't help but choke. Although this fellow Meng Tong didn't have a brain, he was simply born with the ability to play dirty tricks. Even with Li Zhengming's extraordinary endurance, he couldn't help but have the impulse to slap the other party to death. "Why? Don't tell me you dare to resist me?" Seeing Li Zhengming's gloomy face and the throbbing veins on his forehead, not only was Meng Tong not afraid, he even taunted him fearlessly. Among the rookies in Blue Cloud Pavilion, other than Meng Tong himself, Li Jingming was the first to side with Meng Jueguang. Furthermore, he had always been loyal and capable. Logically speaking, he should have been placed in an important position, but in fact, he was the one who had been ostracized and oppressed by Meng Tong the most. For no reason, Meng Tong hated him. Seeing this person made him unhappy from the bottom of his heart. He just wanted to trample on him, bully him, and even destroy him. Li Zhengming had long since this malicious intent. If not for Lin Yi needing him to continue being a spy, he would have long found a chance to fall out with Meng Tong, to prevent any undue delays. After staying silent for a long time, Li Zhengming withdrew the spirit pet talisman from his pocket and tossed it before Meng Tong. After that, he turned around and left without saying a word. He silently swore in his heart, "Endure it one last time, and I'll surely kill you the next time." Even if he was exposed and Meng Jueguang took revenge on him, he would not hesitate. At least he's tactful. Meng Tong looked at Li Zhengming's back and sneered proudly. Without saying a word, he picked up the spirit pet talisman, gritted his teeth, and walked toward the black-backed stick ape not far away. After all, the black-backed stick ape was not a big spiritual beast that could be found anywhere. Murongzhan might not be interested in it at first glance, but what if she suddenly changed her mind? What if she wanted to steal the black-backed stick ape? Meng Tong couldn't do anything about it. Murongzhan could tell that Meng Tong was nervous and on guard. She sneered disdainfully and said, "Don't worry. Such an ugly and unattractive spiritual beast doesn't deserve to be my spiritual pet. Only trash like you would treat it as a rare commodity." Although these words were unpleasant to hear, Meng Tong felt relieved when he heard it. As long as she didn't come to snatch it, it was fine. Only creatures like women would be stupid enough to pursue the so-called beauty. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, only strength was king. When the black-backed stick ape beats up your spiritual pet, you bitch can just wait to kneel and lick my boots. Time passed in the blink of an eye. It had been a whole month since the newcomers entered the back mountain of the Welcome Pavilion. Most of the newcomers had already returned half a month ago. As for the stronger ones, they stayed in the back mountain until the last few days before finally returning. The spiritual beast assessment finally entered the final segment. One-on-one spiritual pet elimination battle. The newcomers brought their spiritual pets and gathered around the arena in their pavilions, according to the distribution of the previous newcomers' challenges. As for the newcomers in the Blue Cloud Pavilion, everyone's attention was focused on an ape spiritual pet. It was the black-backed stick ape that Ming Tong had subdued. Its strength had already reached the peak of the late stage of Heaven's stage. After Ming Tong returned, he looked for Ming Jueguang's help and specially gave it a sharp black iron rod. Although the Welcome Pavilion had a rule that the newcomers were not allowed to use any weapons in the competition, it had never been said. Even the spiritual pets under them were not allowed to be equipped with weapons. This time, Ming Tong took advantage of the rule and made everyone speechless. With one hand holding onto the black iron rod, the black-backed stick ape stood there, faintly emitting a domineering aura. It was enough to make the newcomers shudder. If they were to face the black-backed stick ape one-on-one, not to mention the spiritual pets that they had subdued, even if they were to fight personally, most of the people present might not be a match for the black-backed stick ape. A spiritual beast with strong combat talent was already stronger than human cultivators of the same level. Now that it had the advantage of weapons, it was not difficult for it to challenge experts at the great perfection of Heaven's stage. Compared to the domineering black-backed stick ape, the gains of the other Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers paled in comparison. As far as the eye could see, none of them were above the Heaven stage. They were not a threat to the black-backed stick ape at all. Out of the 10 rookies present, 4 of them had not even managed to subdue a spirit pet. After all, the low-grade spirit pet charms that were given to them did not have a high success rate if they were to encounter a spirit beast with a bit of strength. Why haven't the others appeared yet? Are they too ashamed to bring their spiritual pets out to see others? What a bunch of cowards. Ming Tong rested his hand on the shoulder of the black-back stick ape and laughed unscrupulously. What a bunch of cowards. At that moment, the important figures among the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers, apart from Ming Tong, had yet to arrive. Not only had Lin Yi and his group not appeared, but even Morong Zhan and Li Jingming had yet to appear. However, even if these people had yet to arrive, the black-backed stick ape's combat power was almost invincible among the Heaven stage. Ming Tong could not wait to see the scene of it displaying its invincible might. After waiting for a while, these people finally appeared one after another. The first to appear in everyone's line of sight was Li Jingming. Hee, this kid probably doesn't have a spiritual pet and feels ashamed to come out to see others. That's why he's so late. Ming Tong looked at Li Jingming, who was alone, and sneered, taking pleasure in his misfortune. Because he had subdued the black-backed stick ape earlier, Ming Tong had already returned half a month ago. He was considered one of the earliest batch among the newcomers. However, Li Jingming, who had been tricked by him, was in a tragic situation. It was said that he had only returned yesterday, and he did not bring back any spiritual pets. Ming Tong had already expected this outcome when he snatched the other person's spiritual pet charms. In other words, he had been looking forward to this scene from the beginning. He was looking forward to seeing Li Jingming make a fool of himself in front of everyone. Putting aside the fact that Li Jingming did not have the guts to snatch the other newcomer's spiritual pet charms, even if he did, the other newcomers would have long scattered. It would be difficult for him to bump into them in the vast back mountains periphery. Even if he was lucky enough to catch one, he might not have the luck to subdue a powerful spiritual pet. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.